Chapter 619. Alrighty. Su Xiangfei happily rushed into the house and took a plate of firecrackers before returning to the courtyard. His behavior made Sujinin, who had just come out of the kitchen, dumbfounded with disbelief written all over her face. Although she could see that his relationship with Tan Xiao had improved from Su Xiangfei's performance yesterday, she didn't expect that he would listen to Tan Xiao to this extent. Sujinin now knew that Tan Xiao was very powerful. Not only did he set up the powerful magnificent Tang Corporation, but he was also a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. But she also knew her brother very well. With the relationship between her family and Tan Xiao, how could her brother, Su Xiangfei, be like this? Clap, clap, clap. The sound of firecrackers sounded as Su Lingyun and Mrs. Zhang, who were busy in the kitchen, also began to cook dumplings. Taking advantage of the time when the firecrackers were finished, Sujinin came to Su Xiangfei's side and asked with a frown, "Brother, you seem to listen to Tan Xiao very much? He's very capable, so I naturally have to listen to him," Su Xiangfei said with a smile. "But Dad and Mom," Sujinin angrily said. Upon hearing this, Su Xiangfei suddenly remembered something. He looked at Tan Xiao, who was walking to the kitchen, and then lowered his voice and said, "Sis, it's my fault. I forgot to tell you before. Tan Xiao has contacted the people in Star City and asked them to find a way to bail out Dad and Mom." "Ah, that's right. Tang Xiao also told me when I just got up that Mom and Dad are already on the way back, and they will be back in the village in about 2 hours. "What?" Sujinin looked at Su Xiangfei with disbelief. The news was like a thunderclap that shook her heart. "Sis, I know you're still angry with Tan Xiao and think that he's the one who caused us to lose everything. But think about how we treated Tan Xiao and Aunt in the past. That's right, our family was rich at that time. My aunt had to take care of Tan Xiao, so her life was very difficult. She even often came to our family to borrow money. But we looked at them with arrogant eyes, treated them with contempt and made things difficult for them. And even almost caused Tan Xiao to go to jail. Right? Sister, look at the present. The wealth that Tan Xiao has now is more than 100 times more than what our family used to have, right? But what about him? How did he treat us? As long as we're close to him, he and Aunt won't look down on us and won't make things difficult for us. Dad committed suicide in the hospital. Why? It's not because of the family's failure, but because he regrets how he treated Tan Xiao and Aunt." As Su Xiangfei spoke up to there, he silently took out a half-pack of cigarettes from his pocket. After lighting it up, he took a few deep puffs. A bitter expression appeared on his face as he said again, "Do you know the reason why I realized that our family has been in trouble all these years?" "What reason?" Sujinin asked with a blank expression. Pointing to the courtyard door, Su Xiangfei bitterly said, "I just returned to the Su family village. The villagers still don't know that our family has been defeated, nor do they know that our parents have been imprisoned. But their eyes when they look at me are full of contempt and disgust. They even look down on me. Why? Isn't it because we've forgotten our roots all these years?" "Our roots?" Su Yanning felt as if her heart had been ruthlessly struck, and a faint pain grew in her heart. That's right. Her roots were in the Su family village. Even if her family once had tens of millions of assets, so what? Could it be that they could forget their ancestors? If they forgot their ancestors, then what would become of their family? Su Xiangfei gently hugged Sujinin's shoulder and sighed. "Sis, we were wrong before, and we have to admit our mistakes. Our previous attitude towards Tan Xiao and Auntie, as well as our attitude towards the villagers in the Su family village, was wrong. As the saying goes, knowing one's mistakes is the best way to improve. Last night, I really felt the change in the villagers' attitude towards me. Even Su Quan drank a bit too much last night. He told me something. Do you know what it is?" "What is it?" Sujinin's complexion was a bit pale as she asked in a low voice. Su Xiangfei said, "The neighboring village, Little Wang Manor. You're not unfamiliar with it, right? We grew up here when we were young. Su Quan drank a lot. Then he told me that he wanted to recognize his ancestors and cherish his family. He wanted to unite with the villagers because we all had the same surname, Su. Our ancestors were from the same family, and we were a family. You should have heard of Little Wang Manor's Wang Xinka, right? Because of his good fortune, He went to the city to do a big business. His family is very rich, and every time he comes back, he always has a swaggering appearance. And the result? Just 2 years ago, Wang Xinka's father died in Little Wang Manor. On the day of the funeral, because he was so unpopular, there wasn't even a villager to help carry the coffin. What happened next? It was his uncle, the village chief, who took him to kowtow and apologized to everyone. Finally, there were villagers who were willing to help carry the coffin and send the old man to the field. Sujinin understood. A regretful expression appeared on her face, and she didn't speak for a long time. Moreover, she found that her brother had really grown up and become sensible. He was no longer the child who relied on his family's stinky money to do whatever he wanted. Brother, I know. Sujinin hugged Su Xiangfei, then let go of him and strode toward the kitchen. 2 hours later, a police car stopped at the entrance of the Su family village. As the door opened, Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyan came out of the police car, followed by a middle-aged man in a police uniform. Thank you, Officer Hu. Thank you for personally sending us back. Su Shangwen held the middle-aged policeman's hand and spoke with a grateful expression. The middle-aged policeman said with a smile, "You're welcome. It's what I should do. Also, please give my regards to Chief Long and Chief Chen." Certainly. Even though Su Shangwen knew that it was Long Hanwen and Chen Zhizhong who got him and his wife out of the prison, but he did not have any friendship with the two of them. The main culprit should be Tang Xiao, but he still spoke to deal with it. As the police car left, Su Shangwen squatted down and opened the duffel bag on the ground. He took out 2 cartons of cigarettes from the inside, opened one, grabbed a few packs and put them in his pocket. Then he stuffed the rest back into the duffel bag. Only then did he turn to look at Zhang Meiyan and lightly said, "Don't blame me for not reminding you. The Su family village is my home, and my mom is here. We've made too many mistakes before. I hope you can be like what you said and live a peaceful life with me." Zhang Meiyan squeezed out a smile as she nodded and said, "Shangwen, I was wrong before. I already know that I was wrong. You can rest assured that I won't put my eyes on the top of my head again." Su Shangwen nodded without a word. He then picked up the duffel bag and walked toward the village. As soon as he entered the village, he saw several villagers who got up early to visit their elders. Big brother Dazhu Jianqi. After greeting them, Su Shangwen's face was full of smiles. He took out a cigarette from his pocket and smoked it one by one. When these people saw Su Shangwen, they were too lazy to pay attention to him. But looking at his passionate look, even though the few of them were astonished, they still nodded their heads and took the cigarettes from Su Shangwen. "It's good that you're back." Su Dezhu nodded and said. Su Shangwen said with an obsequious smile, "Big brother Dazhu, it's all my fault before. I got a bit of money and forgot my surname. You can rest assured that this little brother will definitely turn over a new leaf in the future. Su family village is my home, and everyone in the village is also my family." Su Dazhu and the others looked at each other in dismay. Then Su Dezhu nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile on his face, "Not bad. It's really not easy for you to realize that you're wrong. Your son is also not bad. He's a real man. Come to my house when you have time. I'll ask my sister-in-law to prepare a few dishes, and we'll drink a few cups." "Son." Su Shangwen stared blankly for a moment, but he still put on a smiling face and promised. Immediately after, Su Shangwen bade farewell to them and entered the village. Along the way he met a lot of villagers. Every time, he would stop and greet everyone with a smile on his face. Then he would open his cigarette and share it with everyone. What made him puzzled was that every villager would mention his son, Su Xiangfei, with a tone full of praise. He wanted to ask the reason, but because people kept passing by and kept greeting everyone, he couldn't ask. After half an hour, Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyan finally arrived at the entrance of their old courtyard. Looking at the off-road vehicle that was parked outside, Su Shangwen stopped his footsteps as he looked at his wife and asked, "Have you noticed that the villagers seem to be treating us differently now that we've returned?" Zhang Meiyan also deeply felt the change in the villagers' attitude toward the couple. She nodded silently and said, "Yeah, they've become cordial. In the past, when we came back, the villagers didn't pay attention to us." Su Shangwen sighed. That's because we looked down on them before. Our reputation in the village was very bad. Let's go. Although I don't know what changed the situation, we must cherish it. No matter how you put it, this is our home. All right. After a series of events, Zhang Meiyun's former arrogance had long disappeared. She carried her luggage and followed Su Shangwen into the courtyard. Dad, Mom. Su Xiangfei and Su Yanning had been waiting in the courtyard for a long time. When they saw their parents appear, they jumped up from their chairs almost instantly and rushed over. Little Fei, little Ning. Seeing her children again, Zhang Meiyun's eyes suddenly burst out with tears. She hugged the siblings and didn't want to let go. Su Shangwen only glanced at his children before his eyes fell on Tang Yunda and Tan Xiao in the courtyard. He strode forward. Su Shangwen came to the expressionless Tang Yunda and knelt down straight. I'm sorry, brother-in-law. Tang Yunda sighed inwardly and slowly helped Su Shangwen up from the ground. He shook his head and said, You don't need to apologize to me. You should apologize to your younger sister and nephew. Su Shangwen turned to look at Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao directly said, You don't need to apologize. If you can change, you're still family. If you can't, then we'll walk our separate ways. Su Shangwen heavily nodded and said, I'll change. At this moment, Zhang Shi, who heard the movement inside the house, came out accompanied by Su Lingyun and Mu Qingping. When she saw her son, Su Shangwen, she froze on the spot. A new week, asking for recommendation votes. Chapter 620. The thread in the loving mother's hand, the clothes on the wanderer's body. It was tightly sewn before leaving, for fear of returning late. The greatest love in the world was a mother's love, as heavy as a mountain. Her son had done something wrong, and was now in prison. Although Zhang Shi didn't say it, she was still worried and looked forward to her son being released from prison as soon as possible and appearing in front of her. She had fantasized and prayed countless times in the past 6 months. When her dream came true, her whole body trembled with excitement and fear. She was afraid that she was dreaming and would wake up with tears streaming down her cheeks. Plop! Su Shangwen knelt on the ground and heavily kowtowed a few times. Then he bitterly called out, We're back, Mom. Zhang Shi finally confirmed that she wasn't dreaming because dreams weren't so real. She bit her lips and then walked step by step to the front of Su Shangwen. Pa! A slap was fiercely slapped on Su Shangwen's face. Feeling distressed and angry, Zhang Shi asked, Do you know your mistake? Su Shangwen knelt there and silently nodded. We know our mistake, Mom. Zhang Shi slowly closed her eyes, but tears still flowed down from the corner of her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, she faintly sighed and said, Get up. It's good to know that you still have a home here. I'm sorry, Mom. Zhang Meiyun also hurried over and spoke with a face full of regret. Zhang Shi didn't speak and just looked at Su Lingyun. Su Lingyun quickly glanced at Tan Xiao and then pulled Su Shangwen up from the ground and said, It's good that you're back, big brother. Xiao doesn't know how to act appropriately, so don't be angry with him. How can I be angry with him? Su Shangwen shook his head and bitterly said, Speaking of which, I have to thank Tan Xiao instead. If it weren't for him, the two of us wouldn't have been able to repent. Don't worry, Mom. We'll definitely turn over a new leaf in the future and treat our family members as our own. Mrs. Zhang wished to hear her son say these words even in her dreams. Tears gushed out of her eyes uncontrollably. She nodded repeatedly and said, Good, good, good. It's best if you can be like this. Su Shangwen's return made the atmosphere in the Su family slightly different from before, especially Tang Yunda's attitude. He didn't show that he forgave Su Shangwen, nor did he pursue the matter. In the evening, Mu Qingping and Gu Yin were driven back to Star City by Su Quan. Tan Xiao followed Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun out of the Su family village and drove to the imperial capital. It wasn't until 2 o'clock in the morning that the family of 3 arrived at the imperial capital. However, they didn't go directly to the Tang family's ancestral residence. Instead, they went to the residence that Tang Yunda had recently purchased in the imperial capital, Rivers and Mountains Garden. It was a relatively high-class residential area within the Third Ring Road. Most importantly, it was a luxuriously decorated duplex house. Tan Xiao had been to the imperial capital several times before, but this was his first time here. Xiao, your mom and I live downstairs. Do you live upstairs or downstairs? Tang Yunda put down his luggage, lit a cigarette and asked with a smile. I'll live upstairs, Tan Xiao said with a smile. This house looks quite big. It should be 200 square meters, right? Tang Yunda said with a smile. It's 260 square meters. I originally wanted to buy a villa, but your mom said that a villa is too spacious. Besides, we don't often live in the imperial capital, so it's a waste to buy such a big house. So we chose this place. We reserved the master bedroom upstairs for you. There's a key on the bedside table. Remember to put it away. All right. Tan Xiao casually looked at the house, and then took his travel bag to the second floor. Although he had an interspatial ring, he didn't want his parents to know this secret for the time being. Therefore, he temporarily changed his clothes and put them in the travel bag prepared by his mother, Su Lingyun. The master bedroom was more than 30 square meters, luxuriously decorated and extraordinarily spacious. Tan Xiao put the travel bag on the cabinet and walked to the window. This building had more than 20 floors, and their house was on the 11th and 12th floors, which was considered as the middle floor. Therefore, he could see the commercial street outside the residential area from the window. It looks like it's going to snow again. Tan Xiao looked up at the sky and was in a good mood. For him, the definition of home was very simple. The place where his mother was home. Now that he had found his father, he was already very satisfied. The next morning, which was the second day of the new year, Tan Xiao got up early and followed his parents to the Tang family's ancestral residence. The Tang family's ancestral residence was very lively today. Almost all the core members of the family had arrived, including his aunt, Tang Min's family. They kowtowed and paid their New Year greetings. To Tan Xiao's surprise, his grandparents also gave him a big red envelope. In the backyard of the ancestral residence, Tan Xiao was pulled to a remote place by Tang Tang. She grinned and shook her mobile, saying in a low voice, "Brother, give me a red envelope." Tan Xiao touched his pocket and forced a smile. "I didn't prepare a red envelope. I'll give you the big red envelope Grandma gave me, alright? No need to trouble yourself. Just send me a red envelope via WeChat," said Tang Tang with a smile. "A red envelope via WeChat? What's that?" asked Tan Xiao with a confused expression. Tang Tang's expression froze and incredulity filled her eyes as she asked, "It can't be, right? You don't know what a red envelope via WeChat is." "I know that WeChat is a chat tool, but I don't know anything about red envelopes via WeChat." Tan Xiao shook his head. "That's right, I don't seem to have WeChat." Tang Tang looked at Tan Xiao as though she was looking at an alien monster. She said incredulously, "Heavens! You don't have WeChat, brother? This is unbelievable. Who doesn't have WeChat these days? Who doesn't know about red envelopes via WeChat? You." Tan Xiao could only force a wry smile inwardly. He had just returned from the Immortal world half a year ago, and had been busy with all kinds of things. How could he have the time to care about those things? Even when he was at school, he only knew about WeChat from Yu Kai and the others. He didn't know that WeChat could also send red envelopes. Tang Tang shook her head and gave Tan Xiao a defeated look. She stretched out her small hand and said, "Give me your mobile. I'll help you download WeChat. Then, I'll teach you how to bind your bank card. You can send red envelopes to your WeChat friends after you've bound your bank card." 10 minutes later, Tang Tang asked Tan Xiao some information while helping him download the WeChat software and bind his bank card. Afterward, she said with a smile, "Brother, you can send red envelopes now. You should give me a big one, right?" "That's right. Just transfer the red envelopes to me directly, or you'll be too stingy." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "Say it. What's the maximum amount of WeChat transfer? Since you've taught me this skill and you're my first WeChat friend, I'll definitely give you the biggest red envelope." Tang Tang's eyes lit up. She stretched out her hand and giggled. 50,000 yuan. Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Alright, then I'll send you 50,000 yuan. A moment later, Tan Xiao transferred 50,000 yuan to Tang Tang through WeChat. As Tang Tang left happily, Tan Xiao thought for a while, and then sent a short message to all the people in his phone book, giving them his WeChat ID and asking them to add him as a friend. It was a new era. and he must keep up with the trend. Now that he had come back, Tan Xiao knew that he couldn't be derailed from society. Since there were so many people using WeChat, he couldn't wander around outside. Beep, beep, beep. Beep, beep, beep. The message prompts set by Tang Tang kept ringing one after another. Although Tan Xiao didn't have many phone numbers in his phone book, less than 100 people in total, 40 to 50 people had applied to be his friend on WeChat in just a few minutes after he sent the message. Ha ha ha, Big Bro Tang actually knows how to use WeChat. What a rare thing. Tan Xiao, I'm Long Hongwen. Divine Dr. Tang, I'm Li Longji. Boss, you actually have WeChat now. Brother Tan Xiao? After receiving everyone's application, Tan Xiao received a continuous stream of WeChat messages. Some were text messages, and some were voice messages. However, he would be exhausted if he had to reply to so many messages one by one. Therefore, he rolled his eyes and sent each of them a red packet of 200 yuan. Using WeChat is really expensive. Although Tan Xiao was a rich man now, sending so many red envelopes at once was still a bit painful for him. However, what he didn't expect was that after he sent out the red envelopes, he was directly dumbfounded by the number of red envelopes and WeChat transfer messages he received. 200 yuan. 20,000 yuan. The highest amount was 6,666 yuan, 8,888 yuan, and so on. After spending more than half an hour, Tan Xiao received all the red envelopes sent by everyone, and found that he had received more than 800,000 yuan. Among them, Long Hanwen, Qin Zhizhong, Jin Xingkui, Miao Wentong, and other big bosses almost unanimously transferred the highest amount to him. 50,000 yuan. This can also make me rich. Looking at the total amount displayed in his WeChat wallet, he shook his head and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Just as he was about to close WeChat, Kong Xia called him. After chatting happily for a while, she directly pulled him into the magnificent Tang Corporation's executive group. God! Whose name did I just see? Boss. Did our big boss join the group? Big boss is here? Is he going to give us another round of New Year's benefits? Long live boss. Happy New Year, boss. Tan Xiao immediately understood Kong Xia's intention. She pulled him into the company's executive group to distribute red envelopes. After thinking about it, Tan Xiao saw that there were more than 40 people in the group, so he immediately sent more than 4,200 yuan red envelopes for everyone to grab. As a result, amidst the red envelopes and cheers in the WeChat group, Tan Xiao greeted everyone amidst countless praises and flattery, and then left the group. Son, what are you giggling about? Su Lingyun came out of the house and looked up at the fluttering snow in the sky. Her eyes finally fell on Tan Xiao and asked with a smile. I'm receiving red envelopes, Mom. Tan Xiao said with a smile. I just made a small fortune. Su Lingyun couldn't help laughing and said, Have you seen the red envelopes Mom sent you? It's 50,000. Once someone taught me how to use WeChat. We used to be poor, and Mom didn't know how to use those high-end WeChat apps, so I gave you very little New Year's pocket money every year. But now that our family is rich, Mom will make it up to you all at once. My good gay friend Broken Bridge Crippled Snow has released a new book, Urban Super Medical Sage. Friends who like urban immortal cultivation are in for a treat. _. Also, there's still the third chapter today. I'm looking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 621. The improvement of their family conditions made Su Lingyun wish that she could give everything to her son. Even if others were not clear about it, she was as clear as a mirror in her heart. Her son had been with her all these years, and it was a bitter and bitter life. Tan Xiao hugged Su Lingyun's shoulder and said with a smile, Thank you, Mom. In fact, even if you don't give me any pocket money, I'll be satisfied as long as I can celebrate the new year with you every year. Silly boy. Su Lingyun rubbed Tan Xiao's head and said with a smile, Let's go. It's snowing outside, let's go inside. The present Tang family's overall mental outlook was completely different from the past. In the past, the Tang family's hearts were always tense, and they always had to be on guard against the threat brought by the Yao family. They were afraid that they would be caught by the Yao family due to their negligence and suffer heavy losses. But now, The Yao family had become a thing of the past. The once colossus had collapsed, which made all the Tang family members feel relieved. However, the threat brought by the Yao family in recent years had also made the Tang family deeply realize one thing. If they wanted the Tang family to be more and more powerful in the future, they must unite. If one withered, they would wither, and if one thrived, they would prosper together. Although the Tang family had destroyed the Yao family, it did not mean that they could sit back and relax. There were many powerful families in the imperial capital, and their forces were complex. There were at least a few families that could threaten the Tang family. Moreover, there were countless low-profile forces that were hiding in the dark. Therefore, even if the Tang family members were relieved, they did not give up their vigilance. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with the current state of the Tang family. He stayed in the imperial capital with his parents for only 3 days, and then directly returned to Star City. Although the family of 3 did not celebrate the New Year in Star City, there were still a lot of New Year's goods prepared before the New Year. Mu Qingping also came back early, so the 3 of them returned to Southgate Town with a warm feeling. In the evening, just as the family was about to have dinner, Tan Xiu received a call from Kong Xia. After hanging up the phone, the smile on his face disappeared, and was replaced by a dense killing intent. "Mom, Dad, I need to go out to do something." Tan Xiu stood up and grabbed his coat from the side. "Is it something very important?" Tang Yunda was surprised. "He didn't even have time to eat?" Tan Xiu said, "It's a bit troublesome. One of the company's top executives had a car accident. I have to rush over to see the situation." Tang Yunda nodded and said, "Pay attention to your safety on the road. Call me if anything happens." Tan Xiu complied and quickly left the house. He then drove to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital at lightning speed. As he arrived at the entrance of the hospital's operating room, Tan Xiu found that there were many security guards of the magnificent Tang Corp in the corridor. Among them were Kong Xia's personal bodyguards, who stood at the operating room's entrance with a solemn expression and vigilantly glanced around. "Kong Xia, how is he?" Tan Xiu strode over and asked. Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Kong Xia immediately said with a bitter expression, "His injury is very serious. I was the one who signed the notice of critical illness. The doctor has already told me to be mentally prepared, and said that the possibility of saving him is very small." "Have you found the 2 bodyguards responsible for protecting Dai Chang?" asked Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "No." Kong Xia shook her head and said, "I brought my men here immediately after I got the news. The people I sent to investigate them haven't come back yet. However, I can't get through to their phones. I've contacted their families and I don't know where they have gone." A cold glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He could easily tell that Dai Chang's car accident was definitely not an accident, but a long-planned assassination. As far as he knew, Dai Chang had a total of 4 bodyguards around him, with 2 in a group. The 4 of them had been trained by the experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, and 3 to 5 ordinary people were simply not their opponents. Most importantly, as bodyguards, they naturally had absolute integrity, and their mobile phones were always switched on 24 hours a day. But now, the 2 bodyguards responsible for protecting Dai Chang were missing, and they couldn't be contacted by phone. It could only mean that they had met with an accident. "Is there any special situation in the company recently? Or did Dai Chang encounter any problems before?" asked Tan Xiu. "Dai Chang told me before the New Year that someone privately contacted him, hoping to buy a lot of God's nectar from him," said Kong Xia. "You also know that Dai Chang is the director of our magnificent Tang Corporation's winery, and there are many people who want to buy God's nectar from him through the back door. That's why I didn't take it seriously at that time. I just thought that the other party's demand was a bit big. Dai Chang refused the other party and was threatened by him." "Who's the other party?" asked Tan Xiu. "He's an electronics factory owner in Guangyang province in the south, surnamed Qian. I sent someone to investigate him half an hour ago, but there's no result yet," said Kong Xia. "Then let's wait for the news first. I'll go inside and see the situation." Tan Xiu nodded. Having said that, he strode to the operating room. After entering, he saw 7 or 8 doctors in surgical gowns operating on Dai Chang, and the surgeon's hands were stained with blood. Who allowed you to come in? Get out quickly. A female doctor who had just been transferred to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital frowned and scolded. Immediately, the other doctors in the operating room turned their heads, and their eyes fell on Tan Xiu's face. Tan Xiu ignored her and looked at the surgeon instead, asking, "How's the situation?" Upon seeing Tan Xiu, the surgeon's eyes suddenly lit up and he hurriedly said, "The patient's condition is very bad. Although the internal bleeding has been stopped, 4 of his ribs are broken, and 1 of them has pierced the lobe of his lung. Additionally, his head has suffered severe damage and his cranial bones are fractured. We'll need the help of a brain specialist later. Deal with the injuries that need to be dealt with as fast as possible," said Tan Xiu. "Then let me take over." "Understood," the surgeon respectfully replied. At this moment, the female doctor who had recently been transferred to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital was dumbfounded. She didn't know Tan Xiu, nor had she seen Tan Xiu in the hospital. She really couldn't understand why the surgeon would listen to Tan Xiu's words. Even the expressions of the others were filled with worship and respect. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu took over the treatment. As the wounds had been stitched up, Tan Xiu had an easier time to deal with them. After his extremely careful treatment, it took him 3 hours to pull Dai Chong, who was riddled with scars all over his body, back from the edge of death. The medical skills he displayed were unimaginable, so much so that the doctors in the operating room couldn't understand it. However, when he said that he had saved his life, but the follow-up care must be in place, all the doctors in the operating room had a deep look of worship on their faces. "Divine Dr. Tang, it's fortunate that you came in time. To tell you the truth, if I were to finish the operation on the patient, my chances of saving him would only be 20%, said the surgeon with admiration. Tan Xiu nodded without a word. The 3-hour treatment had consumed a lot of his spiritual force. Therefore, he gave a few instructions, and then left the operating room. He's Divine Dr. Tang? The female doctor who previously berated Tan Xiu murmured in disbelief. The surgeon glanced at her and smilingly said, "He's naturally Divine Dr. Tang, the one who can cure many difficult and complicated diseases." The female doctor's lips squirmed a few times and said with a worried expression, "Then the chief surgeon smiled and said, "Don't worry. Divine Dr. Tang is broad-minded and won't stoop to your level. Besides, you didn't do anything wrong. After all, someone trespassed the operating room, and you don't know Divine Dr. Tang, so you should stop him. Alright, don't think too much about it. Divine Dr. Tang just said that the follow-up care of the patient must be done well." When Tan Xiu came out of the operating room, he saw Kong Xia waiting outside the door. Since there was something on his mind, Tan Xiu directly asked, "How's the investigation going?" "We found the bodies of the 2 bodyguards in a river on the outskirts of the city," said Kong Xia. "They were killed by a heavy blow and should have been hit with a blunt object. I got the news from the police, so I've sent some people to deal with it. Also, we haven't found the boss surnamed Qian. I've asked the Everlasting Feast Hall's people to investigate in Guangyang province, but the news I got is that he's gone missing." Tang Xiu picked up his mobile and made several calls in a row. He needed to find the boss surnamed Qian. It would be best if he didn't do it, but if he did, Tan Xiu would make him pay a painful price. Tan Xiu liked Dai Chong very much. This bald man was also the one who brought Dai Chong to Star City and made him work for him. Now that such a big thing happened to him, he must give him an explanation. "Boss, I suspect," said Kong Xia hesitantly. "What do you suspect?" asked Tan Xiu with a slightly moved expression. "If the boss surnamed Qian really sent someone to do it, I suspect this matter is not that simple," said Kong Xia. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "You mean that the other party wanted to buy wine from Dai Chong at first because he was drunk and had other intentions? He also wants the God's Nectar formula?" "That's right." Kong Xia nodded. "Just wait for the news," said Tan Xiu. "As long as I find that Qian guy, I can pry open his mouth and make him spit out the truth. Evacuate all the company's security guards from the hospital, and take your bodyguards with you. Secretly send some experts from the magnificent Tang Corporation here. I've saved Dai Chong's life, but I can't let him get hurt again." "All right." Kang Xia nodded without a word. As Kang Xia left with her bodyguards and the magnificent Tang Corporation's security guards, Tan Xiu personally sent Dai Chong to the ICU. He didn't hurry to leave and stayed outside the door, waiting for the news. Late at night, Tan Xiu received a call from Tang Min, who told him that she had found the place where the boss surnamed Qian was. Blue City. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu thought for a moment, and then called Xiao Mingjin. After learning that he was still in Blue City, he immediately asked him to help arrest the boss surnamed Qian. Brother Xiao, I'll send you his information. Please. Chapter 622. After the call, Tan Xiu's mood was a bit heavy. The magnificent Tang Corporation's current development was as swift as a rocket, and anyone with a bit of ability could see it clearly. His identity was probably known by many people now. The reason why the magnificent Tang Corporation could continue to develop until now was that those forces who coveted the company's core data were eliminated in Star City. And another reason was probably related to his identity. The Tang family. It was like a protective umbrella for him now. Many people were clear that if they wanted to deal with the magnificent Tang Corporation, they must deal with the Tang family together. Tan Xiu was perfectly aware that the Tang family would eventually defeat the Yao family and become the final winner, and the one who would benefit the most would be him. The outcome of the game between the two families had accidentally provided the magnificent Tang Corporation with an additional layer of protection. Men die for wealth, just as birds die for food. A tall tree that attracts the wind will be coveted by all forces. I've always wanted to keep a low profile and make a fortune in secret. But the magnificent Tang Corporation's development speed and its future potential are bound to make others envious. I'm afraid my so-called low profile is just a joke in the eyes of many people. The legal representative of the magnificent Tang Corporation is me. Tan Xiu lit a cigarette and stood in the corridor to take a few deep puffs. A strong and overbearing aura burst out from his body. Since he couldn't keep a low profile anymore, then he had to stand up. The Tang family was in the light, while the everlasting feast hall was in the dark. He could use both of them, so what was there to be afraid of? Whoever dared to covet the magnificent Tang Corporation, he would play with them. At worst, he would lead a team to kill them. After thinking it through, Tan Xiu extinguished the cigarette butt and called Gu Xiaoxue, asking her to transfer Mo back from Nine Dragons Island and send some experts to Mo so that he would follow him and obey his orders. Blue City. Inside a standard room of the Golden Star Hotel, Qian Xingwang stood vigilantly by the window and looked outside through the gap of the curtains. He was an overseas Chinese and an ambitious man. At the same time, he was also a confidant of a bigwig of the Stygian Club's Vero family. I have to give up the Vero family's identity as the owner of the electronics business in China for the sake of several product formulas of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Although the loss is great, I can get more benefits if I can get the formulas. Big Boss said that as long as I complete the mission, he will support me to develop my own force. Qian Xingwang clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anticipation. He had bribed a powerful deputy director of the winery under the magnificent Tang Corporation. As long as Dai Chong died, the deputy director would most likely become the new director. At that time, it would be easy for him to get the formula of God's nectar. Bang bang. There was a knock on the door. Qian Xingwang's heart tightened. He quickly turned around to look at the four subordinates sitting on the bed and the chair behind him. He quickly gestured to them. Instantly, a middle-aged man understood Qian Xingwang's meaning and quickly pulled out a pistol from his waist. He flashed to the door and asked in a deep voice, "Who is it?" "It's me." A woman's voice came from the door. The middle-aged man quickly looked at Qian Xingwang and saw that Qian Xingwang nodded at him. He immediately opened the door and allowed a beautiful and well-dressed woman to enter the room. Qian Xingwang strode forward and asked in a deep voice, "How's it going?" The woman let out a faint smile and said, "The target has been solved. According to your order, it was a car accident. However, it's a bit troublesome to deal with his two bodyguards. If the magnificent Tang Corporation's people were to investigate, I'm afraid that the two bodyguards would have been killed." "Nothing else matters as long as Dai Chong is dead," said Qian Xingwang with satisfaction. Then, Why did you want us to fake the car accident? Asked the woman. Qian Xingwang sneered and said, I just want the magnificent Tang Corporation's people to realize that this is not a traffic accident. I deliberately exposed myself to let them know that someone is keeping an eye on the magnificent Tang Corporation and its winery. It's also the best opportunity for us to strike when everyone is in a state of panic. I still don't get it, said the woman with a puzzled expression. It's a diversion. Qian Xingwang proudly said, Our first target is not the god's nectar, but the formula of health products and cosmetics. As long as the majority of the magnificent Tang Corporation's security forces are placed in the winery, we can lay our hands on the formula of health products and cosmetics. You're really amazing, boss, said the woman in admiration. Qian Xingwang grinned. Then he put away his complacent expression and seriously said, Hurry up and pack up. We must move. The magnificent Tang Corporation's backer is the Tang family in the imperial capital. If we don't hurry up and move, I believe it won't take long for someone to find this place. Son, have you found the new stronghold I told you to prepare? The middle-aged man who opened the door before nodded and said, We've found it. We can rush there at any time. Let's not delay and move immediately, said Qian Xingwang seriously. More than half an hour later, Xiao Mingjin hurriedly arrived with 8 of his men. According to the address given by Tan Xiao, they kicked the door of the room where Qian Xingwang had stayed before, only to find that the person inside had disappeared. Tan Xiao, we haven't found them. They should have withdrawn from the traces left in the room. Xiao Mingjin dialed Tan Xiao's number and explained the situation. Tan Xiao took the phone and slightly furrowed his brows, saying, I know, Brother Xiao. Since they have fled, let's put this matter aside. Thanks for troubling you so late at night. Xiao Mingjin said, There's no need to be polite between us. Do you want me to send some people to find their traces? As long as they are still in Blue City, finding them shouldn't be a problem. Tan Xiao said, Forget it. These people obviously have a purpose and plan to act. I'm afraid it won't be easy to find them if we lose their traces. Xiao Mingjin said, All right. I'll be staying in Blue City in the near future. Call me at any time if something happens. All right. In Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Tan Xiao hung up the phone with Xiao Mingjin and contacted his aunt, Tang Min again. From her, he learned that those people who had been investigated had indeed left. Their whereabouts were very strange, to the extent that they even concealed their whereabouts from the intelligence personnel, and quietly disappeared without a trace. Late at night, Tan Xiao handed over the task of protecting Dai Chong to several experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, and then drove to Kong Xia's residence. In the early hours of the morning, Kong Xia didn't rest. She received a call from Tan Xiao and waited at home, in Kong Xia's bedroom on the second floor of the villa. After arriving, Tan Xiao took off his coat and walked to the couch and sat down. Even though the heater was turned on in the room, he still half opened the window and lit a cigarette. What's the result of the investigation? Asked Kong Xia with a concerned expression. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, We've indeed investigated the identity of those people, and they're in Blue City. But when I sent someone to arrest them, the place was already empty. Kong Xia said with all seriousness, So the other party has a premeditated plan? Their goal is God's nectar? God's nectar is probably just one of them. Tan Xiao sneered. Since they dare to covet our magnificent Tang Corporation's products, or the product formula, I'm afraid they won't only target God's nectar. I'm afraid their target is also the healthcare product formula and cosmetic formula. Who exactly are they? Asked Kong Xia. He's Qian Xingwang, a foreigner and the owner of an electronics factory in Guangyang province, said Tan Xiao. But I suspect that this is just a cover for his real identity. It's very likely that he has other identities. Else, unless he's out of his mind, he would never dare to target our magnificent Tang Corporation. The enemy is in the dark while we're in the light. I'm afraid we have to be careful, said Kong Xia. Tan Xiao nodded without a word and said, I won't leave Star City for the time being before this rat is caught. Also, I've transferred some people from Jingmen Island, and they should be here in a few days. Since the other party has already acted, they won't give up halfway. Let's set up a net in Star City and trap them as long as they dare to move again. About your school? Asked Kong Xia. Let's put the school's matter aside first. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, the formula of our magnificent Tang Corporation's products must not be stolen, else it will bring us serious losses. Kong Xia nodded without a word and said, I've already sent some people to communicate with the police. They will investigate their own, while we'll prepare ours. Counting on the police now is absolutely a joke, said Tan Xiao with a forced smile. The people I've invited are much more powerful than the police. They belong to the National Intelligence Agency, yet they still lost the traces of those people. Do you think the police are more powerful than the National Intelligence Network? Kong Xia stared blankly for a moment before she immediately said, then I'll negotiate with the police tomorrow and ask them to suspend the investigation. No need. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, if they want to investigate, then let them investigate. In order not to beat the grass and alert the snake, we'll pretend to be the same as before and wait for the fish to take the bait. That night, Tan Xiao spent the night at Kong Xia's place and slept soundly until the next morning. Then he left in a hurry. He went out last night and didn't return since he was afraid that his mother would be worried. After returning to Southgate Town, Tan Xiao found that his parents had not gotten up yet, so he went back to his room, changed his clothes and cultivated for more than an hour. Xiao, do you have something to do this morning? Asked Su Lingyun at the dining table. I have something to do, said Tan Xiao. I have an appointment with my friend to pick up the child I adopted. Su Lingyun put down her chopsticks and curiously asked, Xiao, I know you want to adopt a child. You also said before that you want to accept him as your disciple. What's so special about him? Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and then said, he's blind. Su Lingyun's hands trembled and she quickly said, You want to adopt a blind person? Xiao, what the hell are you thinking? Although our family doesn't lack money to raise a child, but the monthly votes have been a bit low recently. In order to stimulate herself, Quiet Night has decided to continue playing the game of monthly votes exploding. Every 100 votes adds one chapter. Brothers and sisters, keep it up _. Chapter 623. After Tang Yunda woke up from his vegetative state and learned that he had a son, he had never regarded Tang Xiao as a child ever since he learned some things about his son. As the saying goes, children from poor families take charge of the household early. He knew that his son had lived a hard life with his wife all these years, so his character was very mature. However, upon hearing that his son wanted to adopt a blind child, he frowned and spoke out his thoughts. Xiao, do you have so much time and energy? You must know that there's a big difference between a blind child and a normal child. Dad, Mom, I understand what you mean, Tan Xiao said. But that child is very special. Although his eyes are blind, his heart is not. With his heart, he can see a lot of things that ordinary people can't see. The reason why I want to adopt him and accept him as a disciple is because I think he's a promising talent. You should believe in my vision. Look at Yinin. Isn't she a good example? Master is right. Yinin wants little junior brother, Gu Yin said with a laugh. Tang Yunda and Su Lingyun looked at each other. Their tense mood eased a lot. The couple knew that Tan Xiao was not an ordinary person. Although they didn't know how he became a cultivator, they were clear about their son's ability, so they didn't say anything more. Mu Qingping asked softly, I'll go out this morning to buy some daily necessities for the child. Also, I'll clean up the room next to Yinin's bedroom. What do you think? All right. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile. After breakfast, Tan Xiao drove out. Originally, he wanted to pick up Little Blind before the new year, but then he received a call from the orphanage's president, who wanted to keep Little Blind in the orphanage for the last new year, so he agreed. After the new year, he went to the imperial capital, so it was delayed until now. At the entrance of Southgate Town, Long Shuiyao, who had received a call from Tan Xiao, was already waiting there with 2 big suitcases at her feet. Upon seeing Tan Xiao's car parked in front of her, she immediately knocked on the window and said with a smile, Open the trunk. I bought some things for the children and brought them along. Tan Xiao opened the trunk and got off to help put the 2 suitcases inside. Then he said with a smile, There aren't many warm-hearted girls like you these days. I even suspect that you spent all your money on the children in the Blue Star Welfare House. Don't praise me. I'll be shy. Long Shuiyao smiled. In addition, my salary is very high. It's tens of thousands a month. Tang Xiu just smiled and didn't say anything more. Long Shuiyao's salary was indeed very high, but as far as he knew, she had to go to the Blue Star Welfare House several times a month, and the things she sent each time were very valuable. For example, Long Shuiyao had spent 20 or 30,000 yuan on the trip before the new year. After getting on the car, Long Shuiyao smilingly said, Tan Xiu, are you curious? My uncle is Long Hanwen. He's a rich man, so why don't I ask him to help the Blue Star Welfare House? After starting the car, Tan Xiu nodded and said while driving, Yeah, I'm quite curious. Logically speaking, the Long family would be able to turn the Blue Star Welfare Institute upside down with just a drop in the bucket. At the very least, it wouldn't be that difficult. Long Shuiyao said, In fact, my uncle has his own charity business. Every year, he will give me hundreds of thousands of yuan to spend on the children in the orphanage. However, most of the children in the orphanage are in poor health. Nearly half of them are sick. Every year, they have to spend 200,000 to 300,000 on medical expenses. Tan Xiu nodded silently. He understood this situation. Most of the children in the Blue Star Welfare Institute were weak and sickly, or children with physical defects. Not to mention little blind. There was also a child with congenital heart disease who needed to spend a lot of treatment fees every year. He even underwent a major operation last year, which cost more than 200,000 yuan. Soon after, the duo rushed to the Blue Star Welfare Institute. Tan Xiu accompanied Little Blind to pack up his things. They didn't stay in the Blue Star Welfare Institute for long, and left with Little Blind. Long Shuiyao had nothing to do today, so she stayed behind. Inside the Land Rover SUV, classical music drifted in the air as Little Blind sat in the front passenger seat, quietly listening to the music. After driving for more than 10 kilometers, Tan Xiu stopped at a traffic light intersection. As he waited for the red light to turn red, he said, The adoption documents have been completed, but I haven't registered a new household registration book for you yet. Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau first to register a new household registration book for you. You'll be my family in the future. All right. Little Blind gently nodded. Your surname will be Tang from now on, said Tan Xiu again. I'll give you a new name, Tang Xiaohan. What do you think? Little Blind thought for a while and suddenly said with a smile, Then, how should I address you in the future? We'll hold an apprenticeship ceremony after we return home, said Tan Xiu. You'll be my 5th apprentice. All right. Little Blind nodded and said, The name is very nice, master. I like it very much. It's good that you like it, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Do you still remember what I promised you? I'll make your eyes see again someday in the future. I'll take you to a place where you'll officially embark on the path of cultivation. Little Blind didn't know what the path of cultivation Tan Xiu mentioned was, but he faintly felt that his life would not be the same as before. At the Civil Affairs Bureau of the Old River Street District in Star City. After Tan Xiu arrived with Little Blind and Tang Xiaohan, they saw Long Zhengyu at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. At the moment, Long Zhengyu was wearing a down jacket, but he still stamped his feet and breathed to warm his hands. We're not late, Zhengyu. Tan Xiu walked over while holding Tang Xiaohan's hand. We're not late, said Long Zhengyu with a smile. He's Little Blind, isn't he? His name is Tang Xiaohan, said Tan Xiu. Long Zhengyu nodded and said, Have you brought the adoption certificate? You'll need the adoption certificate and your ID card to register your household registration. I've brought them. Let's go inside quickly, said Tan Xiu. Wuxia was a country that relied on favors. There was a saying, having connections in the court makes things easier. Long Zhengyu had connections in the Civil Affairs Bureau. When he arrived, the second-in-command of the Civil Affairs Bureau personally accompanied him. Very quickly, he completed the registration process, and was invited by the other party to sit in the office for a while. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Long Zhengyu looked at Tang Xiaohan and hesitantly said, I wanted to take you to a fun place, but it seems you can't go now. What fun place? Asked Tanxiu. Long Zhengyu said with a smile. Several local tycoons got a batch of raw stones from the south, and they're officially selling them in the Star City Convention and Exhibition Center today. To put it bluntly, it's stone gambling. Stone gambling? Tanxiu's expression moved. He looked at Tang Xiaohan and his heart was stirred. He needed jades, a lot of jades of excellent quality, whether it was used to make magic tools, to arrange arrays in the future, or even to refine storage items. Jades were the best choice. Xiaohan, let's not go home first. How about going to play with Master? Tanxiu picked up Tang Xiaohan and asked with a smile. All right. Tang Xiaohan was very sensible. Even though he couldn't see and didn't like lively scenes, he was willing to follow Tanxiu wherever he wanted to go. It was because he firmly believed that he would spend the rest of his life with his master, Tanxiu. He would also be her dearest family member. After boarding Tanxiu's car, Long Zhengyu, who was sitting on the front seat, turned his head and glanced at Tang Xiaohan, who was sitting in the back seat. He then said with a smile, "Since you want to go with me, have you prepared the money? I heard that those local tycoons got a lot of raw stones with good quality. I'm afraid you'll have to spend a lot of money if you want to play with them." Tanxiu nodded and said, "I have some money now, so I'll buy some if I find some satisfactory raw stones." Long Zhengyu shook his head and laughed. Satisfactory raw stones? There's no satisfactory raw stones in this world. Whoever has X-ray vision and can clearly see the jades in the raw stones will quickly become the richest man in the world. You're exaggerating, aren't you? Tanxiu said with a smile. The wealth of the richest man in the world is in the hundreds of millions. How much money can you earn by gambling on raw stones? That's because you don't really understand the situation of jades, said Long Zhengyu. Let me tell you something. A few years ago, there was a young man surnamed Zhuang who relied on his keen eyes and understanding of jades. He once went to the south, the west, and even went to Africa to gamble on stones. He bought jades and started a jade material business. He made a fortune from it. There was a jade Buddha in the west, but that young man surnamed Zhuang made jade Buddha revere him a lot. His current net worth is more than 10 billion yuan. Listen to me, I'm talking about US dollars. Tanxiu thought for a moment and slowly nodded. Gold is priceless, but jade is priceless. I can indeed make a lot of money if I can get a lot of good jades. It's a pity that I don't have much time to spend on the jade material business. Else I'd really like to see that young man surnamed Zhuang. It's very difficult for me to see him, said Long Zhengyu with a smile. He's also a busy man. However, with your status, if you want to see him, he should agree. Let me tell you, he's my idol. Tanxiu couldn't help laughing and said, No way, right? Your Long family may not be as rich as him, but he shouldn't be your idol. I'm not talking about making money. Long Zhengyu curled his lips and said. Then what are you talking about? Tanxiu was surprised. He. Long Zhengyu grinned and said, That brother surnamed Zhuang has reached the acme of masturbation. You know what? He has several wives, and they get along very well with each other. Our country is not like other countries, where only monogamy is allowed. But those wives of his don't need the legal status of husband and wife. Those women are willing to follow him as long as they can. Ugh! Tanxiu stared blankly for a moment. He immediately raised his hand and gave a thumbs up, praising. This brother is amazing. Chapter 624. At the Star City Convention and Exhibition Center, there were more than 100 security guards dressed in black security uniforms. They maintained the order of the entire convention center very well. The guests who came to participate in the stone gambling were innumerable. Just as Tanxiu entered with Tang Xiaohan in his arms, he saw that there were at least 2,000 to 3,000 people. The whole scene was very lively. How come there are so many people here? Tanxiu asked with a bit of disbelief. Long Zhengyu chuckled and said, Originally, the stone gambling event was supposed to be held in Blue City. However, there's a big shot in Star City. He used all kinds of connections to make those local tycoons hold the stone gambling event in our city. Therefore, all the rich and powerful people from all over the country, who like jade have come to our Star City. That's right, you haven't gone to the hotels recently, have you? All the hotels in Star City are full of guests. How many raw stones did those local tycoons bring? Tan Xiu was surprised. To think that they can even attract rich and powerful people from all over the country. Long Jingyu said in a low voice, "It's a lot. I heard that half of the raw stones produced in a mine in the south have been brought here by them. In addition, some merchants in the jade business also came over to sell their jade stones and put out batches of raw gemstones. In short, even if you have billions of yuan today, you can spend it all." Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He originally thought that there weren't many raw stones and jade materials this time, but after hearing Long Jingyu's words, he realized that the jade materials he lacked this time were almost enough. As the stream of people entered the convention and exhibition center, Tan Xiu could clearly see a lot of raw stones in the temporary shacks. Each of the shacks was guarded by staff, and each raw stone had a price tag. Some stones were priced at a few hundred yuan, some were priced at a few thousand yuan, and some were priced at a few million yuan. What made Tan Xiu feel inconceivable was that some of the raw stones were priced at more than 10 million yuan. This scene was just the outermost shacks that he casually saw. As far as the eye could see, there were at least dozens of shacks inside. "Jingyu, do you also want to play?" Tan Xiu turned to look at Long Jingyu and asked with a smile. "I'm a poor man, you know." Long Jingyu shook his head and said, "I can take out hundreds of thousands now, but I'm afraid I'll suffer a lot if you ask me to take out 1,000,000. I'm poor." Tan Xiu laughed and scolded. "Fuck off, if you are poor, then there are no rich people in the world. However, you don't have to put yourself in such a difficult situation, do you? Why invest so much money into the business? Also, don't you have all my construction funds? If you can't handle the cash flow, it's not a problem to use it temporarily." Long Jingyu sternly said, "That won't do. Your project funds will be used to rebuild Nine Dragons Island. I can only use the profits after the project is over. Otherwise, you can't use it before the project is over." Tan Xiu shook his head with a smile and said, "All right then. In any case, I don't care about this matter. Just do as you see fit." The crowd moved forward. Tan Xiu's eyes kept glancing at the raw stones in the shacks. After walking for 100 meters and seeing more than a dozen shacks, he finally stopped in front of a shack selling jade materials. The raw stones in this shack were also of poor quality, but most of them were jades. However, it was obvious that these jades had just been taken out from the raw materials. The quality is just so. Tan Xiu looked at them and made a judgment inwardly. "The jades I have here are pretty good, sirs. Would you like to buy some?" A middle-aged man with a big belly smilingly looked at the two and asked. Behind him were 4 young men in suits who kept glancing at the guests in the shack. Tan Xiu put Tang Xiaohan on the ground and held his hand as they walked inside, replying with a smile, "We're just looking around. We can buy some good jades if we see them." The fat middle-aged man's smile immediately turned brighter. He patted his chest and said, "Two little brothers, the jades I have here are absolutely of good quality. There are some jade seed material, Hetian jade material, and jadeite material. You can rest assured that the price of the jades here is absolutely fair." Tan Xiu looked at the price of the jades and secretly forced a wry smile inwardly. The price of the jades here was very high. Although he was not short of money now, he would have to spend a lot of money if he wanted to stock a lot of jades at this price. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu looked at the fat middle-aged man who was greeting the other guests. After calling him over, he said, "I've seen the jades here. The price is too expensive, and most of them are very ordinary. Let's put it this way. If you can give me a fair price for all the jades here, I'll buy them all." "What?" The fat middle-aged man was dumbfounded. He looked at Tan Xiu incredulously and said, "Are you kidding me, little brother? I have a lot of jades here. If it's less than 1.8 billion, it won't be." Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and seriously said, "I'm not kidding you. I need to buy a lot of jades, and you happen to have ready-made ones here. So we can directly trade as long as we agree on the price." The fat middle-aged man's expression turned serious. He carefully observed Tan Xiu and suddenly furrowed his brows, asking, "Have we met before, little brother? Why do I feel that you look familiar?" "I can assure you that we haven't met before," said Tan Xiu. Maybe I have a common face, so you feel that I'm a bit familiar. The fat middle-aged man nodded silently. After looking around, he said in a deep voice, I'll give you a 10% discount if it's really like what you said and you can buy all the jades here. 40%. That's my bottom line. Tan Xiao shook his head. You can't bargain like that, little brother. The fat middle-aged man shouted. 40% discount? I'll have to pay a lot of money if I sell them to you at a 40% discount. If you're not sincere, then forget it. Tan Xiao shook his head and sighed. It seems we can't do business here. It's fine. Since you're not willing to accept it, I'll look elsewhere. Seeing that Tan Xiao was about to leave, the fat middle-aged man quickly said, 15% off. How about 15% off? This is the bottom line that I can bear. 40% off. Tan Xiao shook his head, saying. He held Tang Xiaohan's hand and walked outside with Long Jingyu. The fat middle-aged man's expression kept changing. Looking at Tan Xiao's back, he wanted to call for help, but the jade materials he had brought in this time were not cheap. If he sold it to Tan Xiao at a 40% discount, not only would he not make a profit, but he would also lose some money. However, if he sold it at a 30% discount, he would be able to break even. 20% off. This was his bottom line. Just as Tan Xiao and Long Jingyu were about to walk out of the shed, the fat middle-aged man strode to catch up and loudly said, Little brother, 20% off. We can trade now if you can bear it. But if you can't, then go to another shed and have a look. Tan Xiao stopped and looked at the jade stones in the shed again. Then he asked, How much is the total price of the jade stones here? It's 645 million before the discount, said the fat middle-aged man. I've sold some before, so there should be more than 610 million left. Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and nodded. If that's the case, then let's trade. Calculate the discounted price for me. And then send all the jade materials here to the address I gave you. The fat middle-aged man complied, and quickly calculated the total price of the rest of the jade stones. After some calculations, he took the list to Tan Xiao and said, For 32 million. Since little brother is so straightforward, then I'll erase the change for you. It's a total of 485 million. If you want me to send someone to deliver all the jade materials to the address you specified, the furthest you can go is Shuangqing province. Also, you need to pay me 85 million in advance as a deposit. Then, I'll clear the account after the goods arrive. No need to go through so much trouble. Tan Xiao said, Just send someone to load all the jade materials, and then leave with me. The address is not far, just in the Blue City area. We'll exchange the goods when we arrive there. No problem. I'll arrange it now. The fat middle-aged man immediately nodded. Tan Xiao looked at the hundreds of stones in the corner, and smilingly said, How about you sell all those stones to me? As for the price, 15 million should be enough. How about we round it up to 500 million? The fat middle-aged man forced a smile and said, The total price of my raw stones is more than 30 million, little brother. Even if I give you a 20% discount, it's still about 25 million. You're too ruthless. Tan Xiao smilingly said, If you have more raw jade materials in the future, I'll buy as many as you can as long as the quality is not worse than this. How about it? The fat middle-aged man stared and asked in amazement, Are you serious? Absolutely, Tan Xiao smilingly said. But don't be too ruthless. I can't afford to buy tens of billions of jade materials a year. The fat middle-aged man was a bit excited. Although he felt that Tan Xiao's additional words were a bit unreliable, he was a local tycoon who could buy 500 million jade materials at once. He could easily make up for the loss of 10 million by buying some of his own jade materials in the future. As he thought of this, he happily said, Deal. Long Jingyu, who had been standing beside Tan Xiao, immediately said, Aren't you too ruthless, Tan Xiao? You're not in the jade business. What are you going to do with 500 million jade materials at once? Tan Xiao lightly smiled and said, I'll make a batch of jade artifacts when I have nothing to do in the future. Long Jingyu suddenly understood. He knew that Tang Xiao owned 9 Dragons Island, and that there was a huge palace on the island. There would be many more palaces after the renovation. At that time, If all the utensils on Nine Dragons Island were to be made of jade, it would definitely look grand and magnificent. However, wasn't spending so much money on jade artifacts a bit too wasteful? The fat middle-aged man was stunned at the moment. Tan Xiao? Could he be the young divine Dr. Tan Xiao of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital? Yesterday, the monthly votes exceeded 200. Today, I've added 2 chapters. Counting the guaranteed chapters, I have a total of 4 chapters. This is the first chapter. Keep asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 625. The fat middle-aged man suddenly sobered up. He finally realized why he felt that Tan Xiao looked familiar. However, before he was 100% sure, he still asked with a bit of expectation. As far as I know, there's a young miracle-working doctor named Tang Xiao in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Are you that young miracle-working doctor? Tan Xiao said with a smile. I didn't expect that. I'm quite famous. Even you know about me. That's right, it's me. The fat middle-aged man was excited. He rubbed his hands and said, It's really you, divine Dr. Tang. I'm so lucky to have such a big business deal with you as soon as I came here. Since you feel lucky, can you give me a discount? Asked Tan Xiao with a smile. Ugh. The smile on the fat middle-aged man's face froze. He then let out a hollow laugh and said, Forget it this time. But I'll definitely give you a better price next time. It's a deal. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile. Tan Xiao, you've bought so many jades, so you won't gamble on stones anymore, right? Asked Long Jingyu. Why not? Tan Xiao said with a smile. Since there's such a fun thing, I might as well participate in it. Maybe my luck is off the charts and I can earn back all the money I spent today. Long Jingyu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. If you have such amazing luck, I think you don't need to do business anymore. You can become a super rich man just by gambling on stones every day. Tan Xiao smiled and said, How about you help me load the car? I'll take a look around. Long Jingyu thought for a moment and nodded, No problem. But remember to give me some jade artifacts when you carve them later. No problem. Tan Xiao replied with a smile and took Tang Xiaohan away. With Long Jingyu staying to help him, he wasn't afraid that the fat middle-aged man would secretly play tricks on him. Half an hour later, Tan Xiao saw an acquaintance in a shack. It was an acquaintance he never thought he would meet here. Miao Wentong. However, just as Tan Xiao was about to walk towards Miao Wentong while holding Tang Xiaohan's hand, Tang Xiaohan suddenly stopped and tugged at Tan Xiao. What happened? Tan Xiao turned around and asked in astonishment. Tang Xiaohan furrowed his brows and turned to point a few meters away, saying, There seems to be something there, master. It's like a beating heart. What? Tan Xiao was stunned. He looked in the direction where Tang Xiaohan was pointing. His eyes immediately fell on a 2-meter-tall, 1-meter-wide rectangular stone erected on the ground. The outer surface of the stone was faintly green. However, when his gaze fell on the price tag of the stone, he suddenly revealed a strange expression, 12 million. Let's go and take a look. Tang Xiao led Tang Xiaohan to the front of the stone. He reached out to touch it, and released his spiritual sense in an instant. What shocked him was that he could also sense something throbbing inside the stone. It was indeed as Tang Xiaohan said, it was like a beating heart. What's going on? Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment, before he instantly released his primal chaos force, and fused it into the stone. However, just as his primal chaos force was injected into the stone, Tan Xiao suddenly felt a suction force coming from inside. Although the suction force was not strong, the primal chaos force he injected was still sucked away. There's something strange here. Tan Xiao's expression changed. He retracted his hand and squatted in front of Tang Xiaohan, asking with a complicated expression, Tell me what's going on, Xiaohan. How can you know that there seems to be something beating inside? I don't know either. Tang Xiaohan shook his head. It's just a feeling that there's no one here, yet something is beating. It's like my heart is beating as fast as the thing here. Perception? Tan Xiao had never encountered such a situation with Tang Xiaohan. After thinking for a while, he summoned an employee and asked, What's the base price of this stone? All the raw stones here are marked with the base price, sir, said the employee with a smile. You must pay 12 million if you want to buy this stone. Tan Xiao nodded and said, then let's make a deal. Give me your account number, and I'll transfer the money. The employee stared blankly and looked a bit surprised. After nodding, he smilingly said, you really have a discerning eye, sir. Many people have their eyes on this stone, but none of them have decisively bought it. Please come with me. We'll go inside to handle the transaction procedures. Hold on. A white-haired old man nearby suddenly came from 7 to 8 meters away. His eyes were bright and spirited, and he was stroking a Hutian jade ring in his hand. Tan Xiao and the employee stopped at the same time and looked at the old man. The old man squinted his eyes and lightly smiled. Little brother, can you bear the pain and give this stone to this old man? You can rest assured that I won't let you suffer a loss. As long as the price of the raw stones you choose in this shed is no more than 500,000 yuan, I'll help you pay the bill. I'm not short of money. Tan Xiao shook his head. 1 million, said the old man. Old man, don't think about using money to make me dizzy, said Tan Xiao with a smile. I won't give you the thing I fancy even if you give me 100 million yuan. The old man took out a certificate from his pocket and handed it to Tan Xiao, saying, little brother, let me introduce myself. I'm the vice president of the National Jade Association, Tianjingnan. I'm also a jade carver. If you can give this stone to me, I can introduce you to the National Jade Association and help you carve an item for free later. How about it? It turns out to be President Tian. Is your carving skill very good? Asked Tan Xiao with a smile. I dare not say that I'm the best, but there are not many people in our country who are better than me in carving, said Tianjingnan confidently. Someone once offered me 5 million yuan, hoping that I could carve an item for him, but I refused. As a matter of fact, I've been interested in this stone since I bought a lot of raw stones, so I'm a bit short of funds. I just asked my son to transfer some money to me. I didn't expect that little brother would take a fancy to it in such a short time. I'm sorry, but I can't help you, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Tianjingnan frowned. He didn't expect that the young man in front of him was still unwilling to give it to him, even though he had said so much. This situation made him a bit angry. However, his self-restraint had always been good. Even though he was angry, he didn't flare up. Instead, he said, little brother, give me your condition. I'll do it as long as I can accept it. I don't have any condition. Tan Xiao shook his head. Tianjingnan finally couldn't help but say, young man, you bought this raw stone with the intention of gambling, right? I'll give you 5 million yuan, and you give this stone to me. How about it? Tan Xiao didn't want to talk to him anymore. He called the staff and walked to the back. What's wrong with you, President Tian? 2 middle-aged men came over. After seeing Tianjingnan's angry expression, one of them immediately asked. Tianjingnan forced a wry smile and said, I took a fancy to this raw stone, but someone beat me to it. I promised him 5 million yuan and asked him to give me the raw stone, but he didn't even pay attention to me. The man was surprised and asked, who's so arrogant? He didn't even give face to you, President Tian? Forget it. Tianjingnan helplessly sighed. I'll give it up since he doesn't want to give it to me. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's any jade inside or how much jade is inside. Maybe there's only a bit of green in the window, but there's nothing inside. That's right. The 2 men nodded and agreed with Tianjingnan's words. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiao came out with Tang Xiaohan and found that Tianjingnan hadn't left yet. He forced a wry smile inwardly. However, Tianjingnan didn't do or say anything excessive, so he didn't have any malice toward him. With the help of the staff, several workers responsible for transporting the raw stone came pushing a flatbed cart and helped Tan Xiao move the raw stone onto the flatbed cart. Under Tan Xiao's lead, they came to the shed where he bought the jade. Oh, divine Dr. Tang, did you buy another raw stone? This stone looks good. There's even a trace of green in the window. There should be jade inside, right? The plump middle-aged man greeted him with a beaming smile as he observed the raw stone on the flatbed cart. Who knows? Tan Xiao said. I felt that there's a higher chance of jade or emerald inside this stone, so I bought it. How much did you pay for it? Asked the plump middle-aged man curiously. 12 million, said Tan Xiu with a smile. The plump middle-aged man raised his thumbs up and praised. Divine Dr. Tang is really a local tycoon. You can casually bet more than 10 million yuan on a stone. Your boldness is really great. I'm just playing around, so I won't buy too much, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But I'll have to trouble you to help me send it back. No problem, said the plump middle-aged man with a smile. Suddenly, a shout came from outside the shed. It's going up. The gambling is going up. Immediately, the guests in the shed, as well as many people outside, rushed toward the source of the voice. Stone gambling and cutting could be done here. Many buyers would cut the raw stone on the spot for the sake of convenience, and the result of gambling could quickly be seen. Long Zhengyu was a bit moved and asked, "Shall we go and have a look?" Tan Xiu pondered for a moment, and then nodded. Let's go and have a look. I've seen some guests gambling before, but none of them caused such a big sensation like this. The plump middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before he gave some orders to his men, and also came out. Do you know how I made my fortune, Divine Dr. Tang? It's all thanks to stone gambling. More than a decade ago, I went to the south with 20,000 yuan. I didn't expect that I would stumble upon a stone gambling place by chance. I even joined in the fun and spent more than 1,000 yuan to buy a stone, which turned out to be a 1,000-fold profit. It can be said that I once became rich overnight, sitting on tens of millions of yuan. Chapter 626. Tan Xiu had observed the chubby middle-aged man's physiognomy. He was born with a face of fortune. Although he couldn't become a super rich man, it wouldn't be a problem for him to have a net worth of billions. Song Hao. This was the name of the chubby middle-aged man. A Miao man who came from the Miao region and took root outside. He was very smart, had good vision, and had an extraordinary temperament. Through his narration, Tan Xiu learned that he became rich overnight more than a decade ago and had a wealth of tens of millions. However, he didn't get carried away by this sudden wealth. Instead, he began to study jade stones after realizing the amazing profits contained in jade stones. He constantly consulted people who knew about jade and lingered in major jade trading markets. He even worked in jade mines many times. After several years of accumulation, he gradually found some knack and then began to work as a middleman. He used his knowledge and eloquence to slowly accumulate wealth, and eventually had a net worth of billions. Divine Dr. Tang, stone gambling is all about foresight, and luck can only play a small part. The water in this industry is very deep, so it's best not to act rashly if you don't know anything about it. The chubby middle-aged man, Song Hao, warned him in a low voice. Don't worry. Tan Xiu laughed. I'm not the kind of person who gets jealous after seeing others suddenly become rich. My main purpose in coming to this convention center is to buy jade materials. Since I've already bought them from you, I won't waste too much money on stone gambling. Of course, if I come across something good and the price isn't too high, I'll buy it for fun. Song Hao was well aware that Tan Xiu wasn't short of money. Tan Xiu was, after all, a famous young divine doctor, who could earn a lot of money just by relying on his superb medical skills. Who didn't have headaches and fever these days? If it were those incurable diseases, perhaps even the super rich would be willing to spend a lot of money to seek treatment. After a while, several people followed the flow of people and came to a place 2 shacks away. Not only was there a large number of stones in the shed, but there were also stone cutters. Hundreds of people gathered here, all of them staring at the stone cutter in blue overalls. To be more precise, they were staring at the football-sized stone that the stone cutter was holding up with both hands. Little brother, you bought this stone for a total of $2,000. Now that it's green, it proves that you've won the bet. I'll give you 2 million, and you'll let me have this stone. How about it? A well-dressed middle-aged man beside the stone cutter looked at the excited young man in front of the stone cutter and said, I'll pay 3 million. I bid 5 million. As the well-dressed middle-aged man's voice fell, 2 voices sounded out at almost the same time. The one who was willing to bid 5 million was an ordinary-looking young man who exuded a superior aura. He was about 26 or 27 years old, and he was accompanied by a young man and a young woman. The owner of the stone, the excited young man, was overjoyed when he heard that. As if he was afraid that the other party would go back on his word, he said loudly, 5 million yuan. Transfer the money to me now and I'll sell this stone. The young man who offered 5 million nodded in satisfaction. He turned to the young woman beside him and nodded. Soon he transferred 5 million into the account given by the owner of the stone. The stone cutter asked, "Do you want to polish this stone?" The young man who bought the stone said without hesitation, "Yes." The stone cutter nodded silently and carefully wiped the stone in his hand. The green color on the stone increased along with his action. In just a few minutes, a palm-sized piece of green appeared in front of everyone. "Wait a minute." A voice suddenly sounded in the crowd. Tian Jingnan, accompanied by 2 men, quickly squeezed into the crowd. His eyes fell on the young man and said with a smile, "Little brother, how about selling this stone to me? I'm willing to buy it for 10 million since you've spent 5 million. "I'm sorry, but I don't lack money," said the young man with a smile. Tian Jingnan's breath stagnated. He hesitated for a moment and then spoke again, 20 million. "I'll offer 20 million if you're willing to sell this stone to me." The young man's mouth curved into a smile. He still shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. Stone gambling is just a hobby of mine. It doesn't matter whether I make a profit or lose money in the end. What I enjoy is the process of cutting and polishing the stone. Let's continue, master." Tian Jingnan shook his head helplessly. He found that he was really unlucky this year. He fancied a stone before, but someone beat him to it. Now that he realized that there might be a good jade in this uncut stone, the other party was still unwilling to sell it. Tan Xiao silently stood in the crowd. As his spiritual sense enveloped the stone, he secretly sighed at the young man's luck. There was jade in this stone, and it was the imperial green jadeite. Once it was taken out, its value would be at least more than 9 digits. "Let's go." Tan Xiao pulled Long Jingyu and turned around with a faint smile. Long Jingyu hesitated for a moment, and found that Song Hao had already left behind Tan Xiao. He let out a wry smile and looked deeply at the young man who bought the stone before chasing after Tan Xiao. "Tan Xiao, we haven't finished watching the good show yet. Why are you in such a hurry to pull me back?" asked Long Jingyu. Tan Xiao lightly smiled and said, "If others lose their bet and we gloat over their misfortune, it shows that our temperament is not good. If others win their bet, it will only make us envious. Why would we do such a troublesome thing?" Long Jingyu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "That's a fallacy. Forget it. If you don't want to see it, then don't. Do you still want to play? If not, let's hurry up and send these jade materials back." "I don't want to play anymore." Tan Xiao slightly shook his head and smiled. A few hours later, the container truck delivered all the jade and stone materials to Southgate Town. After unloading them in the courtyard, Tan Xiao transferred the money to Song Hao and sent him away. "What's your plan next, Tan Xiao?" Long Jingyu asked with a bored expression. "I'll rest at home and let little Han familiarize himself with the situation at home," said Tan Xiao. "We'll go to the convention and exhibition center in the afternoon." "We're going to the convention and exhibition center again?" asked Long Jingyu in surprise. Tan Xiao shrugged his shoulders and said with a relaxed expression, "I'm idle anyway, so it's better to go there and play. But what about you? What's your plan today?" "I'll go back first," said Long Jingyu. "I'll go to 9 Dragons Island in a few days, so I'll arrange some things in Star City before I go." "That's right. If you meet that brat who bought the stone material today again, you must be wary of him. That brat, he's as smart as a demon." Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. The appearance of the youth exuding a superior aura emerged in his mind, and he immediately asked, "Who is he?" "He's Chu Yuan, the successor of Shanghai's Imperial Garden, the owner of the Imperial Brilliant Group, and the founder of Imperial Fortune Venture," said Long Jingyu. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows. He vaguely felt that the name Imperial Garden was somewhat familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere. But he couldn't remember where he had heard it. "Is he very powerful?" Long Jingyu was silent for half a minute before he faintly said, "He's more than powerful. He's simply monstrous. The wealth he has is no less than any of the powerful families in the country. The armed forces behind him are so many that it makes one's hair stand on end. His influence is not only in the business world, but also in the military. Tan Xiu's complexion changed and a big wave rose inside his heart. He was well aware of the real powerful families in the country, such as the Tang family and the Yao family. They had deep foundations, a lot of wealth, and powerful armed forces. Yet, Chu Yuan could actually be compared with these real powerful families. What exactly was his origin? Tan Xiu shot a deep look at Long Jingyu and asked, "You seem to know him very well, no?" "You're wrong. I know very little about him." Long Jingyu shook his head. Appearances can confuse the eyes, and it's difficult to measure the depth with a ruler. The Imperial Garden has existed for hundreds of years. Even the four major families during the chaotic era of war were deeply influenced by the Imperial Garden. Even during the anti-Japanese war, countless outstanding talents emerged from the Imperial Garden and became heroes after the end of the war. Even though all the people who came out of the Imperial Garden were stripped of their positions after the end of the war and disappeared from the world, the Imperial Garden is still the Imperial Garden, and has always been feared by those in power generation after generation. I don't know much about Chu Yuan, but I know a lot about the Imperial Garden. In a flash, Tan Xiu seemed to understand Long Jingyu's meaning. He silently nodded and said, "I understand. You can leave first if you have something to do. Let's find some time to meet again before going to Nine Dragons Island. I'll be staying in Star City in the near future." Long Jingyu responded, and then drove Tan Xiu's car away. He didn't say much to Tan Xiu, but his words not only affected Tan Xiu, but also himself. He didn't want to mention the name Chu Yuan, because Chu Yuan was his direction, and the goal he strived for all his life. In the villa's courtyard, Gu Yin's face was full of curiosity as she observed Tang Xiaohan, who was standing quietly at the side. She wanted to talk to Tang Xiaohan, but she was worried that he wouldn't be easy to get along with. Finally, as Long Jingyu left, Tan Xiu's eyes fell on Tang Xiaohan. He turned around and waved to Gu Yin, saying with a smile, "Yin, come here and let me introduce you. His name is Tang Xiaohan. You can call him Junior Brother, or Xiaohan." Gu Yin paced a few steps forward and nodded obediently before extending her hand to Tang Xiaohan. But when she realized that Tang Xiaohan's eyes couldn't see, she immediately pulled his hand and said, "Hello, Junior Brother. I'm your senior sister, Gu Yin. I should be older than you, but I'm just a few years older." "Hello, senior sister." Tang Xiaohan suddenly smiled and said, "Are we a family from now on?" Gu Yin looked up at Tan Xiu and found that Tan Xiu gently nodded to her. She immediately smiled and said, "We're a family from now on, Junior Brother. A master for a day is a father for a lifetime. We're all master's children. A master for a day is a father for a lifetime." Tang Xiaohan silently recited this sentence inwardly, and repeated it a dozen times. Then he firmly nodded and said, "I'm very happy. I have family members now, and two of them." "You're wrong, Junior Brother." Gu Yin grinned and said, "It's not two family members. You'll have a lot of family members in the future." "Sorry. I was invited to attend a gala, so the update is a bit late today." Chapter 627. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with the harmonious relationship between the two children. After handing over Tang Xiaohan to Mu Qingping to take care of, he put a lot of jade and stone materials into his spatial ring in front of Mu Qingping and Gu Yin, and then went to the study room on the second floor alone. Imperial Garden. It seemed to be a very mysterious and extremely low-key existence. In today's society, it was very difficult to keep secrets and still be strong in certain industries. If there were really a lot of outstanding talents in Imperial Garden, then it was really too powerful. In order to figure out the situation of Imperial Garden, Tan Xiu dialed Gu Xiaoshue's phone. To his surprise, although Gu Xiaoshue knew something about Imperial Garden, she didn't know much about it. However, she told Tan Xiu one thing, which attracted Tan Xiu's attention. Imperial Garden was the Tai force of the three styles. Tan Xiu searched on the internet and learned about the three styles, Tai, Qimeng and Luren, which became the three styles. It was the ancient Chinese's three great lost arts. Tai mainly used Tianyuan to measure national affairs. Qimeng mainly used earthly primordial to measure collective affairs. Luren mainly used human primordial to measure human affairs. Qimen was famous for measuring collective affairs. Tai was taboo for measuring national affairs. Qimen was taboo for measuring collective affairs. Luren was taboo for measuring human affairs. After a long time, Tan Xiu thoughtfully turned off the computer, but he was a lot more vigilant about Imperial Garden. Because there were many Qimen forces, but Tai was the only one. In other words, Imperial Garden was an existence that could wrestle with the entire Qimen forces. With a history of hundreds of years, or maybe even longer, it was probably deep enough to make one's hair stand on end. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will definitely offend them. The Imperial Garden is powerful, but I'm not afraid of it. If the people of the Imperial Garden live in harmony with me, then I won't care. But if the people of the Imperial Garden dare to provoke me, no matter how powerful they are, I will make them suffer a bloody lesson. Tan Xiu lit a cigarette. After a few puffs, he looked at the time and found that it was already noon. He finished the whole cigarette and went to the dining room on the first floor. Because his parents were out and did not come back, after lunch, he left Tang Xiaohan to Mu Qingping to take care of and left the house. Stone gambling. He was no stranger to this. He had once relied on his own abilities to make a lot of money by gambling on stones. Now that he had a chance to make a fortune, he did not want to miss it. At 1 p.m., he returned to the Star City Convention and Exhibition Center. Since it was lunchtime, the number of people in the Convention and Exhibition Center was reduced by more than half compared to the morning. Tan Xiu walked around those shacks. To his satisfaction, after touching them personally and using his divine sense to observe, he finally found hundreds of good stones, among which more than a dozen contained jade materials and jadeite, which were definitely of the highest quality. Boss, isn't business busy? After Tan Xiu walked into a shack, he looked at the shack that was hundreds of square meters in size. Apart from 2 stone-cutting machines and 2 white-haired old men, he immediately said with a smile. The old man, who was wearing presbyopic glasses and holding a cup of hot tea, waved his hand casually and said in an even more lazy tone, "They've all gone for lunch, so there's naturally no rush here. Little brother, are you here to cut the stones?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Cutting the stones is a given, but I want to buy a lot of stones, so I hope to rent your shed this afternoon. Both of you name your price." The other old man, who was wearing a tang suit and had a cane beside him, waved his hand and said with a smile, "You're mistaken. I'm not a stone cutter. It's just that an old friend of mine came to Star City, so I took advantage of lunchtime to meet him. Old Huang, this little brother wants to rent your shed. What do you say?" The old man wearing presbyopic glasses said with a smile, "What's your name, little brother?" "Tan Xiu," said Tan Xiu. The old man in tang suit said with a smile, "I say, Old Huang, you don't know the famous young divine doctor? One of the reasons why I came to meet with you today is to have a good chat with you about this young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. I want to see if you're willing to find an opportunity to ask him to treat your leg or not." The old man wearing presbyopic glasses looked surprised. He stood up and sized up Tan Xiu. Then he curiously said, "I've heard the name of the young divine doctor, but I didn't expect it to be this little brother." Tan Xiu slightly squinted his eyes as he observed the old man's legs. He found that the old man's left leg obviously had a hidden injury. His left foot was a lot lower than the ground, and he would definitely have a slight limp if he were to walk. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiu said, "How should I address you, old man?" The old man wearing presbyopic glasses said with a smile, "You can call me Master Huang. Can I take a look at your left leg?" Tan Xiu nodded. Master Huang's eyes lit up as he immediately nodded and promised. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu found that Master Huang's left leg joint had a hidden injury, due to multiple bone dislocations and even bone fractures. After withdrawing his hand, Tan Xiu said, "I can treat the hidden injury in your leg joint." Master Huang looked happy and hurriedly said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Divine Dr. Tang. I'm willing to pay any price. Do you think your leg is more important?" asked Tan Xiu. "Or is renting this shed to me and helping me cut the stones?" Master Huang instantly understood Tan Xiu's meaning and replied without hesitation. Money is just a worldly possession. Naturally, my leg is more important. If divine Dr. Tang can cure my leg, the rent and labor fees will be waived. Deal. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, Please have a nice chat. I'm going to buy the stones I like. I'll send them to you later. All right. Master Huang happily replied. At this moment, a graceful figure came in from outside the shed. She was wearing a white mink coat and a beige silk scarf. Her shiny black long hair fluttered in the wind. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. She wore a white veil below the bridge of her nose, making people unable to see her true appearance. Tan Xiu raised his brows and instantly released his spiritual sense. After he easily saw the woman's appearance, he was secretly surprised because he found that the woman was very beautiful. She was about 25 or 26 years old, and her appearance was not inferior to beauties like Kong Xia and Mu Weining. The moment Tan Xiu released his spiritual sense, the woman's footsteps suddenly came to a halt. A bewildered look could be seen in her obsidian-like beautiful eyes. Her eyes easily fell on Tan Xiu. Upon finding that Tan Xiu was about to leave, she immediately called out, Please wait, sir. Tan Xiu's footsteps came to a halt. He found that the woman was coming toward him and immediately asked, What's the matter? The woman faintly smiled, giving Tan Xiu a feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. Her beautiful voice sounded, My name is Shuiyu, sir. You can call me Miss Shui or Ayu. May I know how to address you, sir? I'm Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu replied calmly. Shuiyu gently nodded. A strange expression appeared in her eyes as she asked, Does Mr. Tang know about the heaven and earth? Do you know about the feng shui profound text? Tan Xiu was secretly vigilant inwardly, yet he maintained a straight face and replied, I don't know. I don't know. Mr. Tang has a very special qi, said Shuiyu suspiciously. I can't see through your fate and your spirit. What? Two exclamations sounded as Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire came at the same time. Master Huang looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression before his eyes shifted to Shuiyu. He frowned and asked, Is what you said true? You can't see through his fate? You can't see through his spirit? It's true. Shuiyu seemed to know Master Huang and the old man as she gently nodded. That's impossible. Master Huang murmured. Unless, otherwise, how could I not see through it? Could it be? It's possible. Shuiyu nodded seriously. Tan Xiu looked at the two and shook his head. You two don't need to speak in riddles. Just spit it out. Forget it. It's nothing. Shuiyu shook her head. I took the liberty to disturb you, Mr. Tang. Please forgive me. Master Huang also quickly said. Divine Dr. Tang, aren't you going to buy stones? Go early and come back early. Tan Xiu nodded and turned to walk outside. After he left the shed, he could still feel the eyes of the three people staring at his back. Shuiyu's words, as well as Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire's shock, made him realize that he seemed to have accidentally met three special people. Someone who could see through fate and see through people's spirits definitely belonged to the three styles, but he didn't know which style they belonged to. Inside the shed, as Tan Xiu's back disappeared into the street outside, Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire immediately bowed and cupped their fists toward Shuiyu and respectfully called out, Welcome, Jade Beauty. Please forgive us for not going out to meet you. You don't need to be so polite, two elders, said Shuiyu softly. I came here to find a good piece of jade, but I seem to have found an interesting person. Master Huang and the old man in Chinese attire exchanged glances and forced smiles could be seen in their eyes. Jade Beauty, the young yard lord is in this convention and exhibition center. Do you want us to inform her? Asked Master Huang. Shuiyu raised her black brows and lightly said, What is he doing here? He has the same purpose as you, to search for jade, said Master Huang. It seems that he also sensed the direction of the living jade. Shuiyu indifferently said, I haven't seen him for just 2 years, but his ability has improved a lot. Master Huang, please don't receive other guests in this shed today. I need you to help me cut the stones. Master Huang stared blankly for a moment, and immediately said with a bitter face, I'm afraid I'm unable to do it, Jade Beauty. Divine Dr. Tang, who just left, has rented this place. He also wants to cut the stones here? Shuiyu was surprised. That's right. Master Huang nodded. Shuiyu pondered for a moment and asked, why do you call him Divine Dr. Tang? Is he a very powerful Chinese medicine practitioner? The old man in traditional Chinese attire interjected. Jade Beauty, Tang Xiu is the famous young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. His medical skills have reached the acme of perfection, and many old Chinese doctors highly praise him. Moreover, Divine Dr. Gue Jianchou's direct disciple once said that his medical skills are far inferior to Divine Dr. Tang. Jade Beauty was a bit surprised. She thought for a moment and said, since he rented this place, then I won't trouble you. He's very strange. If it weren't for some powerful people covering his life for him, I'm afraid the problem would have been him. Go on with your business. I'll follow him to have a look. Today's fourth update has been completed. Seeking recommendation votes for support. Chapter 628. Tang Xiu had already walked around the inside and outside of the sheds, and memorized the locations of the stones he wanted to buy. After learning about them, he finally understood that the prices of those stones were not negotiable. If he wanted to buy them, he had to pay for them, and if he didn't want to buy them, he could go elsewhere. But the price of the jades taken out of the stones could be negotiated. Boss, I want these 2 stones. After coming to a nearby shack, Tang Xiu pointed to the 2 stones he had inspected before. The total price of these 2 stones was 28,000 yuan. After paying with his card, Tang Xiu found a cart driver and loaded the 2 stones into the cart. Mr. Tang. Shuiyu strode forward and slowly came before Tang Xiu. Her eyes swept the cart and lightly smiled. Do you like to gamble on stones, Mr. Tang? Tang Xiu didn't want to have more contact with this woman because the dozens of stones he fancied contained good quality jades and jades. Furthermore, he had decided to ask Master Huang to help him cut the stones. Once the jades and jades were taken out, his identity would be suspected by this strange woman. I'm just playing around. Tang Xiu said perfunctorily. I also want to gamble on stones, so this trip won't be in vain, said Shuiyu with a faint smile. If Mr. Tang doesn't mind, how about we choose the stones together? Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He pondered for a moment and then said, I'm sorry, but I've already chosen the stones and won't stay in each shack for a long time. If Miss Shui wants to choose the stones, please go ahead. Having said that, he didn't give Shuiyu a chance to speak and directly walked toward the next shack. Trouble should be avoided as much as possible. His special means could not be known by others, and naturally, it was better for fewer people to know about it. Shuiyu was dumbfounded. She had never encountered such a person before. He spoke in a completely perfunctory manner, and in the end he bluntly refused her request. Moreover, he didn't even give her a chance to speak and just left like that? Shuiyu had met a lot of people and experienced a lot of things since childhood. Yet, no one had ever refused her or showed a repulsive attitude. There must be something strange about him. Shuiyu steeled her heart and chased after Tang Xiu's back under the influence of that strong aura. Regardless of whether Tang Xiu allowed her to follow, she wanted to witness Tang Xiu's methods of stone gambling. After entering the shanty, Tang Xiu was keenly aware that Shuiyu had followed him in. Although he was somewhat dissatisfied and thought that this woman was not sensible, he could not directly drive her away since she did not come to strike up a conversation. After spending 1.6 million to buy a few stones, Tang Xiu left with the cart driver. Shuiyu had been maintaining a distance of 7 or 8 meters from Tang Xiu. She did not intervene in Tang Xiu's purchase of stones, nor did she say anything to affect Tang Xiu. Her beautiful eyes were only filled with curiosity as they lingered between Tang Xiu and the stones. After nearly an hour, Tang Xiu had invited a total of 6 cart drivers, and spent a total of more than 42 million to buy dozens of stones. However, there was a piece of stone that was priced at 28 million. That piece of stone was also the largest among all the stones. It took a small cart to load that piece of stone that was 200 to 300 kilograms. Miss Shui, you've been following me for nearly an hour. You should be tired, right? Tan Xiu finally stopped and looked at Shuiyu with a dissatisfied expression. Shuiyu, as though she did not see Tan Xiu's dissatisfied expression, chuckled and said, "I'm just curious about you, Mr. Tang. That's why I want to have more contact with you. Furthermore, you're very casual in picking stones, which I admire." "Then, do you think I should say that I'm honored?" Tan Xiu said indifferently. "No need to say that. Just let me see if the stones you picked can be cut into jades and jadeites." Shuiyu shook her head. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and asked, "If I ask you to leave now, will you leave?" "I'll leave and chat with Master Huang." Shuiyu nodded. "Let's get straight to the point," Tan Xiu said. "What do you want?" Shuiyu said. "I really just want to know more about you, nothing else. I heard from Master Huang that you're the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. You're able to achieve such great attainments in Chinese medicine at such a young age, which shows that you're not an ordinary person. Perhaps, it's very likely that you're the same kind of person as me." Tan Xiu's brows stretched out as he said with a faint smile, "Then I want to know, what kind of person are you? And where are you from?" Shuiyu hesitated for a moment before she gently raised her hands and made a series of hand gestures. Then she said, "If you can understand my hand gestures, you'll know who I am and where I come from." Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He simply could not understand the meaning of Shuiyu's hand gestures. After giving it a thought, he simply let go of his vigilance and said, "Maybe we're not the same kind of people. I can't understand your hand gestures, let alone guess where you come from. Since you want to follow me, I can't throw away my face and drive you away. So follow me if you want to." But there was a bit of disappointment in Shuiyu's eyes. But after hearing that Tan Xiu was willing to let her follow him, she still asked, "But what? In this society where men and women are equal, you can't just look at the cart drivers working so hard and not help them, can you?" Tan Xiu said, "Look at this cart driver. He's pushing 200 to 300 kilograms of stones. Isn't it very strenuous?" Shuiyu was stunned. She looked at Tan Xiu with disbelief. She opened her mouth, yet she didn't know what to say. He actually wants me to help the cart driver push the cart?" Tan Xiu's expression turned cold. He deliberately showed an impatient look and waved his hand. "If you want to push the cart, then do it. If you don't want to, then just leave. I don't need to go to Master Huang's place to cut the stones, but I can't have any idlers following me." As his voice faded away, he directly turned around and walked away. Shuiyu was dumbfounded as she watched Tan Xiu walk more than 10 meters away. Only then did she sober up from her shock. She shook her head, at a loss whether she had to laugh or cry. Watching the cart driver strenuously pushing the cart, she quickly caught up with him and helped push the cart. At the intersection dozens of meters away, Chu Yuan, who had an ordinary appearance but exuded the aura of a superior, walked out from another aisle with a young man and a young woman. Behind them, 2 cart drivers were pushing 2 carts filled with stones, following them at a moderate pace. Chu Yuan's footsteps suddenly came to a halt. He saw the carts coming from the left, and his eyes finally fell on Shuiyu, who was wearing a mink fur coat and a veil. Stunned, confused. Never in his wildest dreams did Chu Yuan think that the famous jade beauty, Shuiyu, would one day help the cart driver to push the cart under the watchful eyes of many people. Since when did she need to do it herself? "Boss, it's Jade Beauty." The young man behind Chu Yuan had an incredulous look on his face and said in a low voice. "I saw her," said Chu Yuan with a nod. At this moment, Tan Xiu had already seen Chu Yuan, the young man and woman behind him, and the 2 cart drivers. His eyes swept over the 2 carts, and his mind recalled the words Long Jingyu had told him. Chu Yuan, the successor of Shanghai's Imperial Garden, the owner of the Imperial Brilliant Group, and the founder of Imperial Fortune Venture. Perhaps he and Shuiyu are the same kind of people. Tan Xiu turned his head and glanced at Shuiyu, who was helping to push the cart, and then continued to walk forward without changing his expression. When he passed by Chu Yuan, his eyes glanced at the blood-colored jade pendant hanging on Chu Yuan's waist. Blood jade was a very precious jade, and any piece of it was a priceless treasure. At the back, Shuiyu also saw Chu Yuan. She raised her brows and let go of the cart. She stopped in front of Chu Yuan and softly said, "Greetings to the young master of the Imperial Garden." Chu Yuan let out a faint smile and glanced at the 6 carts, saying, "Jade Beauty, we haven't seen each other for 2 years, right? I didn't expect that we would meet again in Star City after the last time we parted in Shanghai. You didn't come here just to gamble on stones, did you?" "I think you misunderstood, Chu Yuan," said Shuiyu. "I didn't buy these stones. The one in front is Mr. Tang and I'm helping him." "Mr. Tang?" Chu Yuan looked surprised and followed Shuiyu's eyes. His eyes lingered on Tan Xiu's back for a few times before he asked with a frown, "Who's Mr. Tang?" Shuiyu pointed to the front and said while walking, "He has profound attainments in the medical field, and is also a very interesting person." "Very interesting?" Chu Yuan slightly furrowed his brows and was secretly vigilant. He had a good impression of Shuiyu, and everyone in the Imperial Garden knew about it. Even though he had never seen Shuiyu's true appearance, he was secretly fascinated by her cold and piercingly cold character that was hidden within her gentle and warm as jade character. He was a proud man who used his real ability to defeat hundreds of outstanding peers in the Imperial Garden, and eventually became the first successor of the Imperial Garden. He had seen countless women, but only Shuiyu could attract him. Now, seeing that Shuiyu was unexpectedly interested in another young man, he couldn't help but be vigilant. "How about taking me to meet him?" Chu Yuan asked seemingly casually, but his eyes were completely locked on Shuiyu's eyes. He believed that eyes are the window to the soul, and he wanted to see more information from her eyes. Shuiyu hesitated for a moment and said, "Mr. Tang's character is very strange. I'm afraid that he will be disgusted if I take you to see him. In fact, I'm also thick-skinned enough to barely be able to follow him." "Ah, he said that he doesn't like idlers following him, so I can only help him push the cart." Chu Yuan squinted his eyes. He felt that he was interested in this Mr. Tang. Ordinary young men who saw Shuiyu, even if they couldn't see her appearance, could make them drool just by looking at her figure, temperament, and beautiful eyes. But this Mr. Tang, did he want to play hard to get? Or was he really not interested in Shuiyu? "Where are you going?" asked Chu Yuan. "He rented Master Huang's shed," said Shuiyu. Chapter 629. Tan Xiu strode into the shed and looked at the chatting Master Huang, and the old man in Tang's suit sitting on the sofa. He lightly smiled and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you today, Master Huang. I bought a lot of stones. I wonder if you can cut them all this afternoon?" Master Huang directly got up and looked at the 6 carts behind Tan Xiu. He forced a smile and said, "I can't cut them all unless I work overtime today." "It's all right. Just do your best," said Tan Xiu. "Let's continue tomorrow if we can't cut them all." Master Huang agreed and called the 6 workers who were pushing the carts, asking them to move the stones to the stone-cutting machine. Just as he finished moving the stones, his complexion slightly changed. His expression became somewhat respectful as he quickly walked to greet Chu Yuan and Shuiyu, who had just come in. "Greetings to the Imperial Garden's young master." "Greetings to the Imperial Garden's young master." The old man in Tang's suit also greeted respectfully. "There's no need to be so polite, garden elders," said Chu Yuan with a smile. "I just happened to meet Jade Beauty and learned that Mr. Tang rented this shed, so I came here to have a look." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Tang." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Chu," said Tan Xiu lightly. Chu Yuan stared blankly and looked at Tan Xiu asking, "Do you know me, Mr. Tang? You're the successor of Shanghai's Imperial Garden, the owner of the Imperial Brilliant Group, and the founder of Imperial Fortune Venture. Wouldn't I be ignorant if I didn't know such a famous and influential figure like you?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Upon hearing this, Chu Yuan's vigilance toward Tan Xiu increased a bit. The other party knew his situation very well, but he didn't know the other party's situation, which made him feel terrible. However, he was extremely intelligent. Despite not liking this feeling, he still calmly said, "You must be joking, Mr. Tang. May I know what kind of work Mr. Tang is engaged in?" "I'm just a student," said Tan Xiu. Pointing to the stones unloaded from the cart, Chu Yuan lightly smiled and said, "A student who can afford so many stones? I'm afraid such a student is rare, no?" Tan Xiu lightly said, Mr. Chu, you don't need to beat around the bush to inquire about my identity. If you really want to know, you can ask me directly. I'm very stupid, and I'm too lazy to use my brain. Chu Yuan raised his brows and said, Since Mr. Tang is a straightforward person, then I'll get straight to the point. I'm very curious about you, so I want to know Mr. Tang's origin. Perhaps we can become very good friends in the future. Tan Xiu said, I don't know if we can become friends, but your arrival has affected my affairs. Just now the jade beauty that you mentioned was helping me push the cart, but because of you, she became lazy. Therefore, with Mr. Chu's wealth and status, you should be able to compensate me, right? What compensation do you want, Mr. Tang? Asked Chu Yuan with a faint smile. Tan Xiu said, I'm easy to get rid of. Chu Yuan pondered for a moment before he turned around and pointed to the 2 carts behind him and said, Since Mr. Tang likes to gamble on stones, how about I compensate you with a stone? Having said that, he didn't wait for Tan Xiu to speak and directly spread out his hands and said, Please. Tan Xiu's compensation was just a joke, but he didn't expect that Chu Yuan would take it seriously. He even found that Chu Yuan didn't seem to be joking at all. His eyes were particularly serious. Mr. Chu is very generous. Then I'll respectfully accept. After saying that, Tan Xiu directly walked to the first cart. As he released his spiritual sense, his fingers constantly stroked the 7 or 8 stones on it. After a while, a strange light appeared in his eyes. He picked up a fist-sized stone and threw it into his pile of stones. Master Huang, I'll have to trouble you, said Tan Xiu. Master Huang quickly glanced at Chu Yuan, nodded and smilingly said, I'll start now. Chu Yuan raised his hand and said, Please wait a moment, Elder Huang. Since fate brought us to meet Mr. Tang here today, and we also have common interests, how about we make a bet? What kind of bet? Asked Tan Xiu. You've picked a lot of stones and I've also picked some, said Chu Yuan smilingly. How about we each take out 3 stones and hand them over to Master Huang to cut? Let's see whose stones have a higher value. How about it? Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, Do you really want to bet? Of course, said Chu Yuan straightforwardly. Besides, I think we should have some stakes for the bet between us. You decide the stakes, said Tan Xiu without hesitation. Chu Yuan glanced at Shui and smilingly said, Whoever wins will get the opportunity to invite Jade Beauty to dinner. Jade Beauty, would you do us the honor? Shui's eyes wandered back and forth between the 2 men. Though she didn't expect that Chu Yuan would propose such a stake, she was still aware of his intention. He just wanted to win the opportunity to have dinner with her. And at the same time, win the confrontation with Tan Xiu. It would be my honor. Though Tan Xiu's EQ was not high, his IQ was extremely high. After he instantly understood Chu Yuan's intention, he nodded and said, I agree. Chu Yuan didn't speak again, and turned back to his cart of stones. He ordered the cart driver to unload the stones, and repeatedly observed them for 2 minutes before he picked out 3 stones. I'll use these 3. Chu Yuan looked at Tan Xiu and said, I have a lot of stones here, said Tan Xiu with a nod. Master Huang, you can take 3 at will. Master Huang stared blankly while Chu Yuan furrowed his brows. Take 3 at will? What does he mean? Is he looking down on me? Or does he have full confidence in the stones he picked? Chu Yuan immediately nodded when he saw Master Huang's inquiring eyes. Master Huang glanced at the pile of stones, and then picked 3 stones with a similar size as the one selected by Chu Yuan. He then looked at Tan Xiu and asked, What do you think of these 3, Divine Dr. Tang? It's good, replied Tan Xiu with an indifferent smile. Chu Yuan's expression suddenly moved and the name, Divine Dr. Tang, echoed in his mind. In a flash, he quickly took out his mobile and read some information from it. After reading it, a cautious look immediately appeared on his face. He even felt a bit regretful because he finally knew Tan Xiu's identity. He was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, the big boss behind the scenes of the magnificent Tang Corporation, and a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital 6 months ago. He was also the most outstanding young talent of the Tang family. He was proficient in music, painting, and was also a peerless genius in the medical field. He was very low-key, yet he unexpectedly rose to fame after many accidents. Tan Xiao didn't know that Chu Yuan had found his information in such a short time. Looking at Master Huang's hesitant expression, Tan Xiao said with a smile, "Master Huang, cut Mr. Chu's stone first. Since this bet was proposed by him, I also want to see his vision." Master Huang nodded. His stone-cutting skills were very good. The first stone was quickly cut into a jade material. Moreover, after he wiped it, he took out a thumb-sized jade material. At the same time, he took out more than a dozen fingernail-sized seeds. "Not bad." Standing at the side, Tan Xiao nodded and exclaimed in admiration. Shuiyu stood at the side with a calm expression. She knew that Chu Yuan was an expert in jade and stone gambling. When Chu Yuan left the Imperial Garden, he earned his first windfall through stone gambling. Master Huang put away the jade material and continued to cut the second piece. What made people sigh was that although the second piece of stone also contained green, it was just a little bit. Its total value was not as much as the price of the first piece of stone. The third stone. When Master Huang cut the edge of the stone, the green jadeite could be clearly seen. After he cut and wiped it, the fist-sized jadeite was quickly taken out. The total value of this jadeite is at least 50 million yuan. Master Huang was not only good at stone cutting, but he was also proficient in the value of jade and jadeite. After putting it on the tray, he couldn't help but sigh. A smile appeared on Chu Yuan's face after hearing Master Huang's words. He was quite satisfied with the result. Among the 3 stones that he had selected, except for the second one, which was a little unsatisfactory, the other 2 had risen in value. If they were to be sold, the jade and jadeite taken out from the 2 stones would be worth at least 60 to 70 million yuan. "Master Huang, it's time to cut Mr. Tang's stone now, right?" Master Huang's expression was a bit complicated. He glanced at Tan Xiao and asked, "Shall I start now, Mr. Tang?" "Let's begin," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Master Huang nodded and carefully looked at the football-sized stone he picked up, and then began to cut it. A few minutes later, nearly half of the stone was cut, and a milky white jade material appeared. "Mutton fat jade?" Master Huang was startled and skillfully wiped and cut it. Finally, he took out 2 pieces of mutton fat jade the size of a fruit core as well as dozens of seeds. This time, Shuiyu, on the other hand, looked surprised. She looked at Tan Xiao's calm face and suddenly had a strange feeling. She faintly felt that today's gamble would be a bit interesting. Chu Yuan's expression remained unchanged, but he could only force a wry smile inwardly. It was because he didn't expect that Tan Xiao's luck would be so good as to take out a mutton fat jade from the first stone. Although its value was not as much as what he got, it was, after all, just the first one. There were still 2 more stones that had yet to be cut. "Continue," Tan Xiao said with a faint smile. Master Huang nodded and picked up the second stone and began to cut it. Red. Master Huang saw a faint red trace in the stone when he cut it. When he began to wipe it and cut in all directions, the bright red jade material was finally exposed to everyone. "Blood jade, top-grade blood jade." Master Huang's voice trembled a little. It must be known that blood jade was very precious, and top-grade blood jade was a treasure that was hard to find even with money. For example, the jade pendant carved with blood jade on Chu Yuan's waist was outrageously valuable. Shuiyu looked at Tan Xiao in surprise. She didn't expect that there would be blood jade in the pair of stones Tan Xiao bought. Moreover, it was top-grade snow jade. "Something's wrong." Shuiyu looked at Tan Xiao's calm expression, and a strange tide emerged in her heart. She knew that Tan Xiao had won. Even if the third stone was not cut, this blood jade alone was worth more than the total value of the jade and jadeite obtained by Chu Yuan. "I'm very sorry. Today's update will be 2 hours late due to the dinner. I'm holding multiple jobs and have too many tedious things to do. I hope that brothers and sisters can understand. As long as Jingyi doesn't have any social engagements, she will definitely update on time. In addition, Jingyi will try her best to rush the draft tonight. If there's a chance, she will try her best to update." Chapter 630. Compared to the shock and doubt on Shuiyu's face, Chu Yuan's expression was a bit unnatural. Originally, he had the thought of winning to prove his ability to suppress Tanxiu. Secondly, he could also invite Shuiyu to dinner. He had even thought of the place to invite Shuiyu to dinner in the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall. However, at this moment, his wishful thinking came to nothing, and he even lost the opportunity to invite Shuiyu, which made him a bit angry. Master Huang was a bit excited. After all, being able to cut out a top-grade jade like the blood jade was definitely an honor for a stone-cutting master like him. However, he was also perfectly aware of what the bet between Chu Yuan and Tanxiu meant for Chu Yuan. It meant that Chu Yuan had lost. However, he still had his own bottom line even though he also came from the Imperial Garden. After taking out the blood jade, he fiddled with it for a while before putting it on the tray, and then picked up the third stone material. Master Huang, there's no need to cut it out. I lost. Despite feeling vexed, Chu Yuan still showed an open and above-board manner. He nodded to Tanxiu and then spoke to Master Huang. Don't worry, Mr. Chu, said Tanxiu with a faint smile. Even if there was no bet between us, I'd still cut these stones out. Let's continue, Master Huang. Master Huang hesitated for a moment before agreeing to Tanxiu's words. After the stone-cutting machine cut it out, a green color appeared in front of everyone in just 2 minutes. There's also jade in it. Master Huang was shocked, and the onlookers in the surroundings also looked incredulous. It must be noted that Tanxiu's 3 stone materials were randomly taken out by Master Huang from a large pile of stones. How could each of them contain jade? Was it Tanxiu's luck? Or was he really sure that there was jade in these stones? The jade contained in the third stone material was not as good as the first and second stones. But in terms of value, it could be sold for several million yuan if sold. I was careless. Chu Yuan rarely lost. That was because he had a cautious personality. Every time he did something, he would make sure that victory was within his grasp. The result of this bet made him realize that there was something wrong with his mentality. If it wasn't for Jade Beauty, he probably wouldn't have proposed a bet with Tanxiu. After taking a deep breath, Chu Yuan lightly smiled and said, Mr. Tang is indeed worthy to be the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, and the most outstanding disciple of the Tang family in the imperial capital. His attainments in stone gambling had reached the acme of perfection. I, Chu Yuan, wholeheartedly accept my loss. Tanxiu said in a strange tone. Mr. Chu is very skillful. I didn't expect that you could figure out my identity so clearly in such a short time. Actually, I already knew about Mr. Tang a long time ago, said Chu Yuan with a faint smile. It's just that we just met, so I didn't remember it for a while. It's not that I'm conceited, but there aren't many people in this world who can beat me, but Mr. Tang is qualified. Tanxiu raised his brows, not willing to say these meaningless words to Chu Yuan anymore. What he needed now was to cut all the stones he had bought. Since the other party already knew his identity, he didn't want to hide it anymore. Since he had already won, he might as well add some more information to let the future successor of the Imperial Garden know that he was not someone to be trifled with. Old Huang, continue cutting the stones. Master Huang looked at Tanxiu with a strange expression, but he still began to cut the fourth stone with the help of the old man in traditional Chinese attire. There's jade material. There's also this one. How is this possible? As Master Huang continued to cut the stones, pieces of jade were taken out from the stone. More than 2 hours later, a large number of jades and jadeites were taken out from more than a dozen stone materials. At this moment, Chu Yuan was shocked. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. It was because each of the stones Tanxiu bought had jade or jadeite in it, which had broken his understanding of stone gambling. Not only him, but the man and woman behind him were also shocked to the point that it was difficult to be any more shocked. It was because they had never encountered such an evil thing. Shuiyu's beautiful eyes were rippling with extraordinary splendor. Her eyes kept wandering back and forth between the stone materials, jadeites, and Tanxiu. She was at the scene when Tanxiu bought these stones. She saw with her own eyes that Tanxiu directly locked the stones and traded with the owners and staff of the shacks. Evil. Strange. Shuiyu found that she really couldn't see through Tanxiu. Not to mention other aspects, just his performance in stone gambling alone was too terrifying. He was a complete evildoer. Finally, when Master Huang cut the 20th stone material, Shuiyu couldn't help but stare at Tan Xiu and ask, "How did you do it, Mr. Tang?" "I don't understand what you mean," Tan Xiu asked despite already knowing the answer. "Even if your luck is so good, it's impossible for you to bet everything correctly," said Shuiyu. "Jade materials are wrapped in stones. Even if a normal person has extraordinary insight in this aspect, it's still impossible for them to bet everything correctly. I think you should have some means to detect whether there's jade inside the stone material." Tang Xiu found that everyone's eyes were focused on him when Shuiyu spoke to him. He immediately grinned and said, "Would you believe me if I told you that my eyes can see through things?" "That's right. Seeing through things? How is that possible?" Shuiyu shook her head. "Since it's impossible, then why did you ask?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "Everyone has their own secrets. You have yours, and so does Mr. Chu. I have a bit of talent in stone gambling, so there's nothing to fuss about, no?" Shuiyu was silent for a few seconds before she suddenly asked, "Can you really see through things?" "I don't know if I can see through things or not," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "But I can see that you're very beautiful. You're definitely a great beauty that's hard to find among thousands of people. Of course, if you can smile more, you'll be even more attractive." "What?" Shuiyu's delicate body trembled, and a shocked expression burst out of her eyes. Tan Xiu's words were like a clap of thunder that directly blasted inside her heart. Aside from her parents, no one else had ever seen her appearance. She had always worn a veil on her face since she could remember. According to the prophecy of her clan, every woman whose appearance was seen by a man would have her heart seen through, and the trajectory of her life would be seen through. Eventually, she would become that man's woman. This deep-rooted concept caused Shuiyu, who came from the mountains of the Miao region, to be shocked and scared by Tan Xiu's words. At this moment, aside from Shuiyu, Chu Yuan, who had a bit of love for her, was also frightened. He was very clear about the ancestral roots of the Snow Jade clan. He had wanted to be the first man to unveil Shuiyu's veil many times in the past, to become the only man for her. But if Tan Xiu really saw Shuiyu's true appearance, then even if he had monstrous abilities, he would not be able to get Shuiyu. "Please don't joke around, Mr. Tang." Chu Yuan's expression turned extremely serious as he spoke word by word with a serious expression. There was even a trace of hostility in his eyes. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He looked at Shuiyu's aghast expression and then at Chu Yuan's hostile and serious expression. Suddenly, an absurd idea emerged in his mind. He was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he asked, "Miss Shui, is there any strange rule in your clan? For example, which man will marry you after seeing your appearance first?" "Yes." Shuiyu's heart was in a mess and her voice was somewhat trembling. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and snappily said, "What era is this? How can such an unreliable rule still be preserved? Forget it. I was just talking nonsense, so don't take it seriously. Also, I'll give you a piece of advice. Love is not a child's play, and marriage is not a joke. You just abolish that unreliable rule as soon as possible." After saying that, he didn't want to pay attention to Shuiyu and Chu Yuan anymore. He directly looked at Master Huang and said, "Hurry up and cut the stones. I don't have much time. The earlier I take out all the jades from the stone material, the earlier I can go home and have dinner." Shuiyu's eyes stared fixedly at Tang Xiu. After a few minutes of silence, she said, "Mr. Tang, since you won the bet with Chu Yuan, you should have dinner with me tonight according to the agreement." Tang Xiu casually waved his hand and said, "Actually, the wager Mr. Chu just proposed was just to make the belle smile. Let's forget about having dinner together. I don't have much time, and have to go back to take care of my child at home." "Child at home?" Shuiyu frowned and asked, "Is Mr. Tang married and has a child?" "No." Tan Xiu shook his head. "Then what do you mean by having a child at home?" asked Shuiyu again. "My disciple is still young," answered Tan Xiu. A struggling look appeared in Shuiyu's eyes. After a long while, she slowly said, "I have nothing to do today anyway. Since Mr. Tang has a child at home, then I'll go back with you. But I don't know if Mr. Tang would like to take me home for a meal." "Jade Beauty." Chu Yuan's expression was a bit unsightly as he shouted in a deep voice. Shuiyu turned to look at him and lightly said, Imperial Garden's young mistress, is the bet between you and Mr. Tang really just a joke? This. Chu Yuan had never regretted it so much. He didn't want to break his promise, but he also didn't want the woman he liked to have dinner with another man at home. It's just a meal, boss. The young woman beside him suddenly spoke in a low voice. Chu Yuan's body trembled and cold sweat suddenly appeared on his back. He found that his mood was unexpectedly affected by the love affair between a man and a woman. He even had some evil thoughts about Tan Xiao just now. Mind-cleansing incantation. Chu Yuan recited it inwardly, and no longer spoke. He didn't even want to look at Shuiyu and Tan Xiao again. With his status and ability, what he was most afraid of was the love affair between a man and a woman. If he was immersed in the love affair between a man and a woman, the door to his heart that he had opened with great difficulty would be closed. His 20 years of effort would be wasted, and he would become an ordinary person again. Today's third update is here. Seeking recommendation votes for support. Chapter 631. Standing at the side. Tan Xiao keenly heard the reminder from Chu Yuan's subordinate. He then looked at Chu Yuan, and found that there was a faint energy fluctuation coming from his body. This energy fluctuation was not a fluctuation of spiritual force, nor was there any spiritual qi attached to it. Instead, it was somewhat similar to the heart force cultivated by the Buddhist sect. The extreme celestial sex people are indeed better than the occult sex people. Tan Xiao sighed inwardly. He turned around and found that Shuiyu was still staring at him without blinking. He suddenly felt a bit of a headache, and regretted the words he had unintentionally said just now. He didn't want to provoke a woman, especially a woman with a perfect appearance. In his opinion, the Shuiyu clan was a paranoid bunch who silently abided by the rules left by their ancestors. It was simply a joke for the happiness of their descendants. Sorry, it's not convenient. Tan Xiao's mind raced and finally hardened his heart to refuse. Shuiyu shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and suddenly said with a smile, Since it's not convenient, then forget it. I'll stay in Star City and wait for Mr. Tang to have time to fulfill today's bet. Are you a dogskin plaster? Asked Tan Xiao snappily. I'm not a dogskin plaster, said Shuiyu smilingly while shaking her head. As long as Mr. Tang doesn't have dinner with me, I will wait for Mr. Tang. If you don't have dinner with me for a lifetime, I will wait for Mr. Tang for a lifetime. Ugh. The more Tan Xiao listened to Shuiyu's words, the more he felt that something was amiss. If someone didn't know the cause and effect of this matter, and rashly heard Shuiyu's words, wouldn't they misunderstand? After thinking about it, Tan Xiao looked at Chu Yuan, who had his eyes closed and didn't speak, and suddenly asked, Mr. Chu, do you have time tomorrow night? How about I treat you to a drink in the most upscale presidential suite in the Long's dining hall? Chu Yuan opened his eyes again, and his originally chaotic state of mind became calm again. Upon hearing Tan Xiao's words, he seemed to have understood Tan Xiao's thoughts. Suddenly, he felt that he was a bit narrow-minded just now. Tan Xiao's meaning was very obvious. He had no interest in Yumarin. I have time. Chu Yuan smiled faintly. His superior aura was invisibly curtailed. Tan Xiao nodded and said with a smile, Miss Shui, it's not a problem for us to have dinner together, but we didn't say that we can't invite others to have dinner together, right? I'll be waiting for you in the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall. The afternoon passed by quickly. Master Huang had to expend a great deal of energy to finish cutting dozens of stones, and take out the jade and jadeite hidden inside. Under the light, he wiped the beads of sweat hanging on his pale face and looked at Tan Xiao, saying, Mr. Tang, I'm fortunate to have accomplished my mission. All the stones had been cut out. All the jade and emeralds are here. Tan Xiao nodded and said, I'll send these things back first. Leave me your address. I'll go back and finish my work, then I'll go find you after I finish eating. Don't worry. I, Tan Xiao, am a man of my word. Since I promised to cure your leg, I will never go back on my word. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang. Master Huang said gratefully. After learning the hotel where Master Huang was staying, Tan Xiao put away all the jade and jadeite he had taken out from the stones. He then bid farewell to Chu Yuan and Shui Yu and left straight away. Inside the shack, Chu Yuan looked at Tan Xiu's back as he left. His eyes then fell on Shui Yu and calmly asked, "Do you believe he can see your face?" "I don't." Shui Yu shook her head. After saying that, she hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "But it's better to believe it than not. If he really saw my face, then I can't violate the ancestral rule of my Shui clan." Chu Yuan forced a wry smile inwardly and said, "Tan Xiu's identity is very suspicious. Though I've learned a lot about him, and know that he's the magnificent Tang Corporation's behind-the-scenes boss, and a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital, I always feel that he should have other identities." "You mean he's the same as us?" Shui Yu hesitated. Chu Yuan nodded and said, "Otherwise, how do you explain his gains from stone gambling today? Each stone material contains jade or jadeite, and the quality is very good. I've estimated his earnings today. If he were to sell all those jadeites and jadeites, he can get at least billions of wealth." "That much?" Shui Yu was surprised. Master Huang interjected from the side. "He definitely has that much. Just those blood jades alone can fetch a sky-high price if they are sold. I may not have accumulated much wealth, but I won't hesitate to buy them if he's willing to sell them to me for 1 billion. Let alone 1 billion. I'm willing to buy them even if the price increases several times." Chu Yuan sighed. The Imperial Garden has existed for hundreds of years, and generations of ancestors have been continuously accumulating them. Yet the number of blood jades they have finally obtained can be counted on one's fingers. Shui Yu fell into silence. She recalled the moment when she met Tan Xiu. The feeling of having her heart peeped made her secretly feel cold. "Do you think he's someone from the occult sect?" asked Master Huang suddenly. "Is there anyone from the occult sect surnamed Tang?" Chu Yuan asked back. "No." Master Huang shook his head. "But he entered the occult sect and learned the occult sect's techniques from its elders. He should be considered as a member of the occult sect, right?" Chu Yuan slightly turned his head and spoke to the young man next to him. "Send someone to investigate him. No matter what other identity he has, you must find it out for me." "I advise you not to make this decision, Chu Yuan," said Shui Yu all of a sudden. "He's very evil. There are very few people in this world who can make me dread them, but he gives me a faint feeling of dread. There's one thing you may not know. He can't see through his numerology and spirit." "What did you say?" Chu Yuan exclaimed in shock. He knew a bit about Shui Yu's special ability. She could see the numerology of any ordinary person and their own spirit, except for those who were part of the 3 styles. Only those with special abilities could not be seen through by her. "This Tan Xiu. Should I still send someone to investigate him, boss?" asked the young man in a low voice. Chu Yuan was silent for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "Since Jade Beauty has said so, then don't investigate him for the time being. It's a taboo to be investigated by others. We still don't know his details, so we can't become enemies with him for the time being." Tan Xiu left the convention center and stored all the jades into his interspatial ring in a hidden place. It was already 8 p.m. by the time he rushed home. He saw his parents talking with Tang Xiaohan and Guyin, so he greeted them and returned upstairs as fast as he could. Today, he had obtained a lot of jade materials, and he would start refining a batch of jade bottles and jade boxes, if there was nothing very important. Of course, he also needed to refine a batch of array discs to arrange a feng shui array. The reconstruction of 9 Dragons Island would be completed next year, and he would need a huge number of array discs to arrange a large array on the entire island. The jades he obtained today were far from enough. After taking a shower and changing his clothes, he went downstairs again. Su Lingyun came out of the kitchen and smilingly said to Tan Xiu, "I've heated the food for you. Let's eat first." "All right." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and followed Su Lingyun to the dining room. "Where did you go this afternoon, Xiu?" asked Su Lingyun curiously. "Chen Zhizhong came to our house today and found that you weren't home. So he left the things he brought and left." Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He didn't understand why Chen Zhizhong would come here. If he had something to look for him, he could have called him directly. After giving it a thought, he took out his mobile and dialed Chen Zhizhong's number. "Master, Chen Jizhong's voice came out of the phone. I heard you came to my house this afternoon. Is something the matter? Asked Tan Xiao. I just got 1,000-year-old wild ginseng this morning and wanted to send it to you, but I found that you weren't home, master, said Chen Jizhong. Also, there's one more thing. Thank you for staying in the imperial capital. All right, I understand what you mean, interrupted Tan Xiao with a smile. Your son is my grand disciple, so his business is naturally my business. Don't do these superficial things with me in the future. That's right, I want to ask you something. How much do you know about jades? Chen Jizhong let out a hollow laugh twice and then said, I know a bit about it. Master, you also know that people like us who have some money like to get some good jades. I once learned some skills from a jade master. That's right, do you need jades, master? I have some good quality mutton fat jade and nephrite jade in my house. Keep those pieces of yours first. Tan Xiao said. They will be useful to you later. What I want to ask you is, are you interested in doing a jade business? Chen Jizhong was confused. Jade business? What's your plan, master? I need a lot of jades. The higher the quality, the more I need them, said Tan Xiao. If you're willing to dabble in the jade business, money won't be a problem. I can invest some money in you, so it'll be easier to get jades later. Chen Jizhong forced a smile and said, Master, I'm willing, but I don't have the strength. Apart from the liquid capital of the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical to maintain its business, the rest of the money is invested in the new city. So, I can give you 5 billion yuan first, said Tan Xiao. Chen Jizhong was silent for a few seconds and then seriously said, I'm willing to give it a try, master. A trace of a smile was revealed on Tan Xiao's face as he nodded and said, Since you're willing to give it a try, I'll transfer the money to your account tomorrow. Remember, I'm not asking you to make a lot of money as long as you can get a lot of precious jades. Also, there's one more thing I want to tell you. There's something wrong with the person in charge of your Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical in Blue City. Perhaps the person in charge of your business in other cities also has some problems. You can check it yourself. Chen Jizhong was secretly startled and quickly asked, What did you find, master? Someone is selling precious medicinal herbs behind your back, said Tan Xiao. Chen Jizhong's complexion greatly changed as he said in a deep voice, I got it, master. I'll clearly investigate this matter and deal with it. All right. Tan Xiao replied and directly hung up the phone. Chapter 632. After dinner, Tan Xiao didn't immediately rush to the hotel where Master Huang was staying, but drove to a small hotel in the Old River Street district. Mo Ao and 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had arrived at Star City, and were staying in this small hotel. Oh, you've worked hard. After seeing Mo Ao, Tan Xiao found that the burly man was now as majestic as an iron tower. A smile hung on his angular face, yet his every movement had the demeanor of a grandmaster. Upon seeing Tan Xiao again, Mo Ao's eyes gleamed with excitement as he respectfully saluted and said, It's my honor to be able to serve boss. It's not hard at all. You'll stay here tonight, said Tan Xiao with a smile. I'll get a house tomorrow as your lodging. You'll follow me and work for me later. The rest will guard the lodging and wait for my order at any time. Understood. Mo Ao and the 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall respectfully replied. Tan Xiao didn't stay here for long. After leaving with Mo Ao, he hurried to the hotel where Master Huang was staying. What he didn't expect was that aside from Master Huang, Shui Yu and Chu Yuan were also waiting for him in the hotel. Mr. Tang, we heard that you're a young divine doctor, and learned that you're going to treat old Huang's leg tonight, so we followed you to see your superb medical skills. You won't blame us, will you? Said Chu Yuan with a smile. As the saying goes, one never slaps a smiling face. Although Tan Xiao was disgusted with the duo following him like a dogskin plaster, he didn't want to become enemies with them for no reason. After replying to them with indifference, he took out the silver needles he carried and said, You two can help me since you followed me. Go get a basin of hot water. The higher the temperature, the better. Also get 2 clean white towels. Chu Yuan was a bit helpless. He had a distinguished identity, yet he was now being ordered around by Tan Xiao like a waiter. He quickly glanced at Shuiyu and found that she was indifferent, so he immediately forced a smile and said, "I'll go now." Tan Xiao nodded and signaled Master Huang to sit down. He rolled up his trousers and pinched the joints of his legs with his fingers. He gently massaged the acupoints of Jianyangwen, Yinlingwen, Dubi, and Zisanli on his left leg. At the same time, strands of chaotic force entered the 4 acupoints through his fingers. "You must have suffered a lot, right?" Tan Xiao raised his head and asked calmly. Master Huang forced a smile and said, "Yeah. These years, every time it rains, my knees hurt badly." Tan Xiao said, "I'm not talking about cloudy days and rainy days. I'm talking about why your knee was injured. There are a few scars on your leg, brand scars, and there are cut marks on the tendons of your foot, but the tendons are not injured. He must have been tortured by someone during interrogation, right?" Master Huang's face froze and he incredulously said, "You can tell that I've been tortured just from the scars on my leg. You also have scars on your neck and eyebrows," Tan Xiao said with a light smile. "So I speculated that you should have a lot of scars on your upper body." Master Huang felt relieved after hearing it. He forced a smile and said, "I've indeed been tortured before. That's an old crime. Just a little bit more, and my life would have been in danger. Fortunately, my companion arrived in time, else the tendons of my limbs and hands would have been cut off." Tan Xiao nodded without a word. At the door, just as Chu Yuan stepped out of the door, his complexion slightly changed. His eyes were locked on Mo Ao, who was standing outside the door, and a chill suddenly ran down his spine. In a flash, he moved a step away and pulled some distance from Mo Ao. The environment he grew up in had given him a strong sense of danger. He could sense a deep threat from Mo Ao, as though a terrifying fierce beast was lurking around him and peeping at him. "Who are you?" Chu Yuan was silent for a few seconds as he vigilantly looked at Mo Ao and asked. "I'm Tan Xiao, my boss," said Mo Ao with a cold and detached face. Chu Yuan slightly furrowed his brows. Although he had faintly guessed it, he was still secretly shocked after hearing Mo Ao's words. He was a martial arts expert, and 8 or 10 ordinary strong guys were not his match. What's more, he also had a special technique. Once he used it, he could easily deal with 3 to 5 martial arts grandmasters. However, he realized that Mo Ao was absolutely not someone those so-called martial arts grandmasters could compare with. If he didn't have a special technique, then it was likely that he had taken a step in martial arts and reached a higher level. "You're really blessed, Tan Xiao," Chu Yuan slowly said and turned to leave quickly. As Chu Yuan fetched some hot water and 2 clean white towels, Tan Xiao stopped the leg massage. He took out the silver needles and pierced them into Master Huang's left leg. Afterward, he took out a surgical knife from his pocket and used the alcohol cotton he brought to disinfect it before directly cutting Master Huang's knee muscles. "Oh, it doesn't hurt?" Master Huang was shocked. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao would use a knife. Even if it was a knife, he didn't expect that Tan Xiao would not give him anesthetics. He thought that it would be very painful, but the knife cut the muscle without any pain. Tan Xiao explained, "I'll seal your nerves with the silver needles. You won't feel any pain, even if I cut your leg from the knee." Master Huang suddenly understood, and looked at Tan Xiao with reverence in his eyes. The cut Tan Xiao used to cut the muscle was not big, but it was very deep. Master Huang could feel that the tip of the knife had pierced the bone. After finishing all this, Tan Xiao took out a small porcelain bottle from his pocket, and took out the body refining liquid from it. He dripped a drop of it, and then took out the needle and thread to suture. "Kneel in the hot water basin and soak for 2 minutes." Tan Xiao directly said to Master Huang after suturing the wound. Master Huang looked at the steaming hot water. The water temperature was obviously very high. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Divine Dr. Tang, my wound has just been sutured. If I put the sutured wound in the hot water, will it?" "No, it won't," Tan Xiao interrupted him. Master Huang could only force a wry smile and kneel in the hot water after hearing it. He didn't feel the slightest pain. Instead, he felt a cool and refreshing feeling in his leg joints, which made him stare with a shocked expression. After the cool and refreshing feeling came a burst of lust, followed by warmth. The 3 feelings cycled and alternated, gradually merging into a special feeling. Ring, ring, ring. At this time his cell phone rang. Tan Xiao took out his mobile and looked at the caller ID. He found that it was Kong Xia, so he picked it up and asked, "What's up?" Manager He Dong, who is in charge of the scar removal cream product, was resting at home half an hour ago when someone suddenly came to visit, said Kong Xia. They are trying to obtain the scar removal cream formula through coercion and bribery. A total of 2 people, a man and a woman. The man is a middle-aged man and the woman is very young. Tan Xiao's expression changed and he asked in a deep voice, "Where are they now?" "They're in the Old River Street district, in a very ordinary residential house," said Kong Xia. After manager he welcomed them into the house, he quietly called me. I heard their conversation, and also sent some people to the Old River Street district. Our people are now keeping an eye on them. "There are only 2 of them?" asked Tang Xiao. 6 people in total, said Kong Xia. That man and woman just entered Manager He's house. There are 2 more people downstairs and outside the residential area where Manager He lives. They are now in the residential house in the Old River Street district. Send me the detailed address. I'll immediately send some people there, said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. Also, I'll be there right away. All right. Kong Xia replied and then hung up the phone. After receiving Kong Xia's message, Tan Xiao immediately called Mo Ao inside and said in a deep voice, "Remember this address and immediately inform your people to rush here. Remember, the people inside must not be allowed to leave. Also, our people are in the vicinity. Don't clash with them." Understood. Mo Ao immediately complied. Tan Xiao signaled Master Huang to move his knee out of the hot water and let him sit on the sofa. He then pulled out the silver needles from his leg and said, "I have an urgent matter and need to leave. The treatment is over. Soak yourself in this method 2 to 3 times a day for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. The water temperature is best to be around 60 to 70 degrees. Don't exert any force on your left leg for the next few days. Your internal injuries will be completely healed after a few days. I'll keep it in mind." Master Huang nodded. Tan Xiao then looked at Chu Yuan and Shui Yu and said, "I won't be accompanying you too. Remember to meet me in the presidential suite of the Long's dining hall tomorrow night. I'll be waiting for you." Having said that, he immediately left with Mo Ao. Inside the room, Chu Yuan raised his hand to touch his chin. His eyes flickered as he slowly said, "Listening to what Tan Xiao just said, there seems to be some action tonight. Moreover, he seems to have a lot of men under him." Shui Yu also thoughtfully said, "Shall we follow and have a look? It's a good show. Maybe we can learn more about Tan Xiao." Chu Yuan shook his head and forced a smile. "Forget it. Though we both have some ability, it's hard to guarantee that we won't be discovered by Tan Xiao's men. That guy gives me a feeling like there's a wild beast around me. It's very oppressive." Shui Yu nodded silently. As a matter of fact, she also had the same feeling since Mo Ao entered the room. She even secretly observed and found that Mo Ao's numerology was very peculiar and difficult to deduce. She could speculate about Mo Ao's numerology for the next 6 months, and found that Mo Ao would definitely have a good fortune. However, she couldn't see Mo Ao's spirit. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it. It was very strong. Chu Yuan walked to the window and stood quietly for a few minutes. He watched as Tan Xiao and Mo Ao hurriedly boarded a car outside and left at a very fast speed. Suddenly, he turned around and said with a smile, "I'm really interested in Tan Xiao now. I don't think I'll be lonely in the future. He's very mysterious and I'm also very interested in him," said Shui Yu. The smile on Chu Yuan's face instantly froze upon hearing it. When a woman was interested in a man, the final result would be Chapter 633. The Star City's River Street Old District was a residential area that had yet to be developed. The traffic network extended in all directions, and there were many alleys and alleys. If someone was not familiar with this area, it would be very easy to get lost in the alleys. Budin Alley. Outside the residential house numbered 01966, 2 young men were squatting by the door, smoking and chatting, but their sharp eyes would sweep across the alleys on both sides from time to time. Under the dim street light, if anyone passed by, they would be scrutinized seriously. Suddenly, one of the young men said in a low voice, "Old goat, why do I have a feeling of dread? It seems like something bad is about to happen." The expression of the youth called Old Yang slightly changed. He vigilantly glanced around and said, "Don't scare me. Last time when we were in Guangyang province, you and Haizi were dealing with the bodies by the river. This feeling was exactly the same. When the police finally arrived, you jumped into the river and ran away, but Haizi was shot dead on the spot. We've all said that you have an amazing sixth sense." Blackie smiled bitterly. "I really didn't scare you. This feeling is similar to that time in Guangyang province." Old Yang frowned and pondered for a while before throwing the cigarette butt at his feet and saying, "You keep watch here. I'll go inside and tell Brother Chung. If he believes us, we'll immediately withdraw." Blackie nodded silently. Inside a 6-story residential building 2 kilometers away, Kong Xia was observing the residential house number 01966 with a pair of binoculars. 2 bodyguards stood beside her, and one of them was also holding a pair of binoculars. She said, "Chief Kong, according to my observation, there should be 8 people inside. Other than the 6 people who went to Mr. He's place, there are still 2 people left here." Kong Xia put down the binoculars, looked at the time and said, "How long will it take for boss to arrive?" The bodyguard said, "The boss has just arrived. He's only a kilometer away from the target's courtyard. Also, boss should have transferred a group of people from the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island. I found 6 of our own people near the courtyard." Kong Xia's eyes lit up and immediately said, "Let's go there immediately." The bodyguard holding the binoculars forced a smile and said, "Chief Kong, I'm afraid I miscalculated. Boss and the others have arrived. Look." Kong Xia hurriedly lifted the binoculars and saw that more than a dozen figures had appeared around the courtyard. Some of them were experts from the Everlasting Feast Hall who stayed in Star City, while she didn't know the other 8. However, these people were agile and nimble. They easily climbed up the roof from the left, right, and even the back. "It's time." Seeing this scene, Tang Xia's heart was as clear as snow. Her guess was right. When Tan Xiao arrived at the alley of the courtyard, he had already issued an arrest order. As for Haizi, who was squatting at the door and smoking, even though he was on guard against the 2 middle-aged men, when the 2 middle-aged men approached him and suddenly attacked him, he didn't even have the time to pull out his pistol from his waist. The sharp dagger was already pressed against his neck. Bang! The courtyard door was kicked open. When Tan Xiao arrived, he merely glanced coldly at Blackie before walking straight into the courtyard. The 2 men in the courtyard had already been captured by the 4 experts. Their mouths were covered, and sharp knives were placed on their throats. In the house, listening to Old Yang's report, Chunqing knitted his brows and silently pondered about the issue of staying or leaving. Suddenly, he heard the sound of the courtyard door, and immediately pulled out his pistol from his waist. He dashed to the window and vigilantly looked outside. Something happened. Chun Cheng's complexion instantly turned extremely unsightly after seeing the scene outside. He didn't expect that they would be discovered even though they were extremely careful to hide their whereabouts. Judging from the situation outside, it was likely that the other party had already made all the arrangements. "Get ready to fight. We must rush out even if we have to risk our lives." Chun Cheng looked at the other 4 people in the room and spoke with a grim expression. The only woman was smoking a cigarette while fiddling with the ring on the ring finger of her left hand with her right hand. Her eyes were cold and she released a fierce aura. She had committed murder countless times. Even though she wasn't an assassin, she thought that she was more powerful than many of them. The other party may be from the Magnificent Tang Corporation. I don't know about the security force of the Magnificent Tang Corp, but I believe they won't send too many people. Otherwise, it will cause a big sensation. So we must defend first. Kill as many of them as possible, and then we'll find a chance to escape, said the woman with a calm expression. Chun Chung frowned and looked at her. Then he nodded silently and said, "We have guns in our hands. Even if they surround us, the probability of them having guns is not big. So don't be afraid. Just wait for my order and shoot." Old Yang also pulled out his pistol. Nearly all of them were equipped with guns this time. As he approached the door, he gently pushed it open and aimed the black muzzle outside. "Old Yang, shoot the guy holding hazy with a dagger. Your marksmanship is one of the best among us here, so be sure to shoot him dead," ordered Cheng. "No problem." A bloodthirsty look flashed in Old Yang's eyes. After replying, he aimed the muzzle at the middle-aged man holding hazy. He counted to 3 in his heart and directly pulled the trigger. Bang! A gunshot sounded and the bullet passed through the door crack straight to the man. In the next moment, the man's expression shifted and he immediately moved Hazy's body, causing the bullet to hit him in an instant. Tan Xiao, who was standing at the forefront, immediately shouted after he found that the bullet wasn't aimed at him. "Attack! I want him alive!" Bam! Bam! The windows on both sides of the house were smashed and smashed. 2 ghostly figures instantly rushed into the house. Their movements were extremely fast. Chen Cheng's group of 5 only saw a blur before the pistols in their hands were snatched away. What made the 5 of them feel as if their souls were about to leave their bodies was that their wrists had been forcefully broken. "Don't move if you don't want to die." The 2 of them aimed the 4 pistols they snatched at Chen Cheng's group of 4. As for the man who wasn't targeted by the muzzle, his neck had been broken, and he fell limply to the ground. Chen Cheng was scared inwardly, but he forcibly maintained a calm expression on his face. He stared at the middle-aged man and shouted, "Who the hell are you? Don't you know that it's illegal to trespass a private house?" "Is that so?" Tan Xiao strode into the room. His eyes glanced at them, and then fell on Chen Cheng. He then sneered and said, "Illegal? A desperado dares to talk to me about the law? Don't you think it's ridiculous?" "Who the hell are you?" Chen Cheng shouted. Under his gaze, Tan Xiao walked to a chair at the side and sat down. He lit a cigarette and took a puff. As the smoke ring was puffed out, he indifferently said, "You covet my things, yet you ask me who I am instead? I wonder if you're too forgetful? Or are you just an idiot?" Chen Cheng's complexion drastically changed all of a sudden. His breathing became rapid at this moment. He stared at Tan Xiao and incredulously said, "You're Tan Xiao? The magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss? It seems that you've investigated me in detail." Tan Xiao sneered. "That's right. I'm Tan Xiao, the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss, a real tycoon." Chen Cheng's face was ashen. Since Tan Xiao had come here, his intention to take the opportunity to escape had been dealt a severe blow. He was a smart man who had experienced great storms and waves. Naturally, he knew very well that he and the others were going to die here today. Winner takes all. Since we've fallen into your hands, it's up to you if you want to kill us. Chen Cheng took a deep breath. He raised his hand to touch his forehead and quickly winked at the woman. The woman understood tacitly and instantly dashed toward Tan Xiao. Mo, who was behind Tan Xiao, flashed in front of Tan Xiao and fiercely kicked the woman's abdomen. Moreover, after kicking the woman until she vomited blood and was sent flying, he dashed in front of Chen Cheng and violently punched Chen Cheng until he was unconscious. "Tie them all up," Tan Xiao coldly ordered. 10 minutes later, when he hurriedly arrived with 2 bodyguards, a total of 7 living enemies were all tied up. "Well done, boss." Kong Xia was very satisfied with the result. Even though she was very clear about Tan Xiao's strength, she was still afraid that Tan Xiao would be injured. At this moment, seeing that Tan Xiao was safe and sound, she immediately felt relieved and praised him. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and said, "If my guess is correct, apart from this man and woman who went to look for manager the rest are probably just small fries. Kong Xia, you go outside and wait. I need to torture them and get the answers I want to know." Kong Xia hesitated for a moment before she nodded and left. As the door was closed, Tan Xiao asked Mo to wake Chen Cheng and lightly said, "Since you've inquired about my identity, I believe you should know that I'm the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. I'm a divine doctor who can pull people back from the bridge of helplessness. Therefore, I'm going to torture you. You should know the torture of 1,000 cuts. I can guarantee that I can cut you 1,000 times and make you live for 2 days. Even if you want to commit suicide, I'm afraid you won't be able to do it." Chen Cheng sneered. Since I dared to come to Star City, I actually have the determination to die. I'm not afraid of torture. Bring it on if you have the ability. I'm not a hero if I even frown. Tan Xiu sneered. Then I'll let you taste the feeling of separating tendons and dislocating bones first. And then I'll let you taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. After saying that, his hands constantly slapped Chen Cheng's body, and he controlled his strength very well. After just 10 seconds, he retreated a few steps and sat back on the chair. On the other side, the woman was also woken up. Arg! A heart-wrenching scream came out of Chen Cheng's mouth. The pain of separating tendons and dislocating bones was the most painful feeling he had ever suffered in his life. Tan Xiu looked at the woman with a sneer and lightly said, "It seems that my separating tendons and dislocating bones has a good effect. If you want to try it, I can immediately use it on you." Chapter 634. The threat seemed to have no effect on the woman. She stared blankly at Chen Cheng, who was tied up and twitching on the ground. After half a minute, she slowly turned to look at Tan Xiu. At this moment, she suddenly showed a strange smile to Tan Xiu. "I'll confess." The woman's voice turned a bit hoarse. Tan Xiu frowned and faintly felt that something was wrong. But before he could figure it out, Mo had already strode forward and pinched the woman's cheek with his fingers, making her open her mouth. Mo's expression changed as a foul odor came out of the woman's mouth. He lifted the woman up and punched her in the abdomen, then flipped her upside down with his other hand so that her head was facing down and her feet were facing up. Cough, cough. The woman coughed up blood in pain, but the blood she coughed out was dark red and black. Tan Xiu finally came to his senses. This woman actually committed suicide by taking poison. He had encountered countless people who hid poison in their mouths, that is, in their teeth. But he didn't expect that this woman also had such a suicidal method. After all, he knew Chinese medicine. After quickly checking the woman's physical condition, he helplessly found that the poison she took was too strong. Moreover, it had been a long time since the beginning, so the poison had already eroded her internal organs. Unless he could get an antidote elixir, it would be too difficult to save her. Puff! The dagger swept across the woman's neck. Tan Xiu prevented her from suffering the pain of the poison, and directly gave her a quick death, which could also be considered as giving her a quick release. Wake up another one. Tan Xiu glanced at Chen Cheng, who was convulsing and bleeding from his 7 orifices. He returned to the chair and said slowly, "I'll talk." Chen Cheng finally compromised amidst the heart-wrenching roar. "You compromised so quickly?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "I still have a lot more ruthless means that I haven't used yet. Why don't you hold on for a few more hours? Don't worry, I can definitely make you suffer double the pain on the premise that you don't die." "I'll talk." Chen Cheng endured the pain, and his fear had reached the limit. He had seen many methods of torture, and at the same time, he was also proficient in all kinds of torture tools, because he had tortured many people to extort confessions from them. But he had never thought that there was a torture method called breaking tendons and dislocating bones. He had never thought that the pain it brought would reach such a terrifying degree. Tang Xiu nodded in response. As Mo dragged Chen Cheng in front of him, he relieved the pain of having his tendons and bones dislocated. Then he watched Chen Cheng lying on the ground like a dead dog, panting heavily. He sneered and said, "Tell me everything you know, else you'll suffer a fate worse than death for a long time. I'll also use everything I have to find that Qian fella, and dig out the information about your family. I don't believe in the idiotic saying that every debt has a debtor. If you make me unhappy, I will make your family suffer a fate worse than death." Threats. A blatant threat. After listening to Tan Xiu's words, Chen Cheng's heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cave. He found that the Tan Xiu before him was simply not a human, but a complete devil. 2 minutes later, his condition stabilized a lot. He looked up at Tan Xiu with difficulty and asked, "What do you want to know?" Tell me everything you know." Tan Xiu snorted coldly. "You should understand what I mean." Chen Cheng bitterly said, "The one who wants to get the technology of the magnificent Tang Corporation's products is Qian Xingwang. He's my boss. If my guess is correct, you should have his specific information." Our plan is very simple. The director of the God's Brewery doesn't want to sell the God's Nectar's formula to us. So we'll get rid of him and bribe another deputy director to replace him. Also, we'll deal with the person in charge of the brewery first. The purpose is to create a diversion to get the technology of the other products of the magnificent Tang Corporation. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he listened to Chen Cheng's plan. Then he asked, "Where's Chen Xingwang now?" "He's in Blue City in the famous garden," answered Chen Cheng. Tan Xiu turned to look at Mo and said in a deep voice, "You'll lead the team to capture Chen Xingwang. Remember, I want him alive. Don't waste your time." Chen Cheng shook his head. "Chen Xingwang will keep talking to us every 6 hours. He'll immediately move if there's a problem with our safety here. There's still an hour and a half before our next call. Aren't you still alive?" Tan Xiu sneered. "I'm alive, but Chen Xingwang doesn't trust me 100%. The one he trusts the most is this woman," said Chen Qing bitterly. "But now that she's dead, Chen Xingwang will sense it when we talk." "An hour and a half?" Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. He shot a deep look at Chen Cheng and immediately asked, If you receive Chen Xingwang's call, can you help delay for an hour?" Chen Qing stared blankly and frowned. "An hour will be difficult since Chen Xingwang is a very suspicious man. But it won't be a problem if it's about half an hour." "No problem. Half an hour it is then," replied Tan Xiu without hesitation. After saying that, he then dialed his aunt, Tang Min's number and asked, "Auntie, there should be military helicopters in the garrison base in Star City, right?" "Yes, but only a few." Tang Min pondered for a moment before replying. "Do you have the authority to mobilize a military helicopter?" asked Tan Xiu. "I need to send some people from Star City to Blue City immediately. Time is very tight. I only have 2 hours. Tang Min took a deep breath and said, "I can't do it with my authority since I'm not in charge of this area. But your third grandpa can do it. I'll contact him immediately." "All right," replied Tan Xiu. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiu's mobile phone rang and Tang Guoxing's voice came from the phone. "Xiu, Little Min has told me about your situation on the phone. You can send some people to the garrison base in Star City now. I'll immediately arrange things there. The military helicopter can take off at any time." "All right, I'll have to trouble third grandpa," Tan Xiu replied. After hanging up the phone again, he looked at Mo and said in a deep voice, "Immediately take some people to the garrison base in Star City. There will be a military helicopter waiting there. Remember, you must arrive at the destination within 2 hours and capture that Qian fella." "Understood," Mo respectfully replied, and immediately called several experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall to leave. At this moment, Chen Cheng had already sat up. He could clearly hear the content of Tan Xiu's phone call, and Tan Xiu's words to Mo. The content of the call caused a storm to rise inside his heart. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Tan Xiu could mobilize the military helicopter of the garrison base in Star City with just a phone call. An hour later, Tan Xiu and Kong Xiao appeared in the Long's dining hall. Aside from the 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, the magnificent Tang Corporation's security guards directly left. Among those who followed Chen Cheng, only Chen Cheng himself survived. The rest were all killed, and their corpses were destroyed without any trace. Inside a business suite in the Long's dining hall, Tan Xiu stood quietly by the window with his hands behind his back. He watched the bustling city outside, yet he didn't have the slightest mood to appreciate it. That Qian fella was like a fierce beast hiding in the dark. He wasn't afraid of him, but he was worried that the magnificent Tang Corporation's product information would be stolen. Therefore, he needed to get rid of this hidden danger as soon as possible. "Don't worry. We'll definitely get rid of him." Kong Xia had never thought of killing people before, let alone breaking the law. But ever since she followed Tan Xiu, she had witnessed Tan Xiu's killing process many times. She had even participated in many of them. She had already become numb to killing people, even though those people were not killed by her own hands. Tan Xiu nodded without a word. He suddenly recalled something and said, "If we can deal with that Qian fella today, I plan to take you and Andy to my hometown." "What are you going to do there?" Kong Xia was confused. I found an earth vein spirit spring in the stone forest behind my hometown, said Tanxiu. If you cultivate in the spirit spring, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. At the very least, you'll be promoted by 1 or 2 levels. Nowadays, the enemy is hiding in the dark and eyeing us covetously. You and Andy are my people, so I must ensure your safety. Bodyguards are only external protection. If you can have more powerful strength, then I can truly feel relieved. Kongxia felt warm inside. She gently pulled Tanxiu's arm and said, I understand. Going to your hometown. Should I prepare some gifts? Isn't Grandma still in her hometown? No need to prepare gifts. Tanxiu shook his head and smilingly said, I still have something important to do in Star City, so I'm not going back to the Su family village. I'll take you directly to the mountain forest to cultivate after we go back. I'll take you back directly after the cultivation is over. How long do you need to cultivate? Kongxia asked. I need to arrange the company's affairs in advance. For days. Tanxiu pondered for a moment and said, Blue City, the garden of a famous residence. Chen Xingwang hung up the phone with vigilance in his eyes. Ever since he sent Chen Cheng and the others out, it was the first time that the woman he trusted the most didn't answer his call. Chen Cheng said that she was taking a bath, which made him a bit bewildered. It was because she knew the time of the call. Taking a bath at this time was not her style. Did something go wrong? Chen Xingwang pondered for a moment, and suddenly made a decision. He turned to look at the 2 men behind him and said in a deep voice, Let's leave this place. You find a way to go next door, and take control of the residents there. Yes. The 2 middle-aged men replied and immediately left. A few minutes later, one of them came back and reported, Boss, we've taken control of the family of 3. All right. Qian Xingwang replied and immediately left the room. When he came to the next house, he saw that the family of 3 had been knocked out and tied up. Then he said, Inform our men to pay close attention to the movements in the vicinity of this residential building. If any strangers approach, report to me immediately. Chapter 635. The cold wind whistled in the dark night. Mo Ao and the 4 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall quietly approached the garden. According to the specific location given by Chen Cheng, the 5 of them didn't enter from the main entrance, but circled to the back of the residential building, and easily slipped in through the staircase window. Oh, there are 4 suspicious targets around this residential building. Should we clean them up first? Or directly go upstairs to catch them? Asked an expert of the Everlasting Feast Hall in a low voice. Mo Ao was in charge of this operation, so the other 4 people obeyed his orders. After thinking about it, Mo Ao seriously said, Let's directly catch that surnamed Qian. As long as we catch him, the mission will be completed. There will be no risk after we clean up the others. Shortly after, the 5 people arrived at the floor where Qian Xingwang was staying. After confirming the room number, Mo Ao gestured to a thin middle-aged man. The middle-aged man then took out 2 curved iron wires and easily opened the door lock. No one. The 5 people looked around but didn't find anyone. The tea in the cup is still hot, and the smell of smoke in the room has yet to disperse. This means that the other party just left not long ago, said Mo Ao in a deep voice. Brother He, you're an expert in tracking enemies. Do you have any way to find them? The thin middle-aged man pondered for a moment and judged. Since the other party just left and there are still 4 suspicious people downstairs, I suspect that our targets should still be in this residential building. Leave it to me, I'll find them in a few minutes. After saying that, he took out a plastic bag from his pocket with some yellow powder inside. When he came to the door, he sprinkled the yellow powder on the floor and took out a spray bottle and sprayed it on the powder. Soon after, footprints appeared on the powder. Next door? The thin middle-aged man stared blankly for a moment, before he immediately stood up and gestured to Mo Ao. Open the door. Mo Ao quickly ordered. When the thin middle-aged man quickly opened the door lock with 2 curved iron wires, Mo Ao instantly pushed the door open, and his figure dashed into the room lightning fast. Who is it? Chen Xingwang, who had always been on guard, quickly opened the door lock. The speed of Mo Ao's group of 5 was also too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't even pull out his pistol before a sharp dagger was already on his neck. Bang bang. The other two people in the room were directly knocked down and restrained. Mo pinched Chen Xingwang's neck and sneered. What's your name? Who are you people? Chen Xingwang didn't answer but asked instead. You don't need to care about who we are, sneered Mo. Just tell me your name. Otherwise I don't mind letting you bleed. My surname is Chun. Chen Xingwang's heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cave. His face was ashen as he spoke. He had already figured out that he had been betrayed by Chen Cheng. That phone call from before was completely a lie. The woman he trusted the most must have been killed by the enemy, and Chen Cheng was helping the enemy to stall for time. His goal was to wait for the enemy to arrive and then capture him. Mo raised his eyebrows. After knocking Chen Xingwang out with a punch, he rummaged through his wallet and found Chen Xingwang's ID to prove that he was Chen Xingwang. Then he called Tanxiu. Star City, Long's dining hall. A satisfied smile appeared on Tanxiu's handsome face after he received Mo's call. He had finally caught Chen Xingwang after racking his brains. He decided to serve him well regardless of whether he was the one who wanted to get the Magnificent Tang Corporation's product formula or not. He would make him regret the idea of stealing the company's product information. You've caught him. Kong Xia's eyes immediately lit up when she saw Tanxiu's expression. Tanxiu nodded with a smile and said, Yeah, we've caught him. Mo will bring him back soon. Kong Xia, call manager Hidong who's in charge of the scar removal cream product. He has the biggest credit this time. Kong Xia nodded with a smile. At this moment, He Chao was anxiously waiting for the news at home. As the manager in charge of the scar removal cream product in the Magnificent Tang Corporation, he had a lot of power and could be regarded as a real high-level executive of the company. He Chao believed that he was very lucky to be able to work in the Magnificent Tang Corporation. Whether it was the salary or the future development trend, he was very satisfied. He had even judged that as long as he stayed loyal and devoted in the Magnificent Tang Corporation, his achievements in the future would definitely make countless people envious. Loyalty. This was He Chao's attitude toward the Magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss. After experiencing the incident in the Long's dining hall, witnessing the big boss kill people with his own eyes, he personally experienced the Magnificent Tang Corporation's uniting momentum and common hatred toward the common enemy. He knew that what the big boss valued the most was not the formidable ability of her subordinates, but loyalty and loyalty. Ring, ring, ring. His mobile phone rang and he immediately pressed the answer button, respectfully saying, Chief Kong. Boss wants to see you. Come to the Long's dining hall immediately, said Kong Xia. After hanging up the phone, He Chao rushed to the Long's dining hall at the fastest speed with a restless heart. He didn't know what the outcome would be, but he was sure that he had chosen to be loyal to the Magnificent Tang Corporation and his boss, Tanxiu. Therefore, the boss wouldn't make things difficult for him. Half an hour later, he saw the Long's dining hall. Under Kong Xia's lead, he came to the business suite where Tanxiu was staying. He looked at Tanxiu's back, who was standing by the window, and cautiously called out, Boss, are you looking for me? Tanxiu turned around and looked at He Chao with a serious expression. At the moment when He Chao was a bit restless, the serious expression on Tanxiu's face turned into a bright smile as he politely greeted. Manager He, sorry to disturb your rest by making you rush here in the middle of the night. Come on, have a seat. Kong Xia, go make a pot of good tea. All right. Kong Xia faintly smiled and turned away. He Chao was overwhelmed by the change in Tanxiu's attitude. He didn't expect that the big boss would invite him to sit down, nor did he expect that the big boss would ask Chief Kong to personally make tea. After taking a seat, with a satisfied expression, Tanxiu said, Manager He, to be honest, you're the hero of our Magnificent Tang Corporation. I can see your loyalty from you. It's because of your report that we've caught a group of enemies who are plotting against the Magnificent Tang Corporation. As the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, I must sincerely thank you. Thank you, Manager He. He Chao was happy inwardly, yet he wore a panicked expression on his face and said, Boss, you're too polite. I'm a member of our Magnificent Tang Corporation, so this is what I should do. I'm really satisfied that manager he can use our as a form of address. Tan Xiao said with satisfaction. I've told Kong Xia to increase your annual salary by 50%. Additionally, you'll be rewarded with a house of about 150 square meters after the new city of Star City is established. He Chao's pupils shrunk and disbelief filled his eyes. His annual salary had already exceeded 1 million yuan, and a 50% increase was a huge sum. What shocked him even more was that he knew the construction of the new city. After the construction was completed, the housing price would definitely be so high that it would make one's heart tremble. A house of 150 square meters would cost at least 2 to 3 million yuan, right? This reward, a warm feeling suddenly welled up inside He Chao's heart. He shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and solemnly said, Boss, the Magnificent Tang Corporation will be my route from now on. As long as the Magnificent Tang Corporation doesn't abandon me, I'm willing to dedicate my life to the company. Tan Xiao clapped and said, I've been waiting for you to say that, Manager He. I'm sure you've already seen the future development of our Magnificent Tang Corporation. Our company is bound to be bigger in the future, and we'll be managing more and more industrial projects. I'm looking forward to the day when you'll still be the founding member of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. I'm also looking forward to the day when you can become the general manager of a subsidiary of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, or the general manager of several subsidiaries. He Chao couldn't sit still. He was deeply aware of the meaning of Tan Xiao's words. As long as he was loyal to the Magnificent Tang Corporation in the future, as long as he had the ability, he could grasp more power and get better treatment in the future. The big boss was giving him a promise. Thank you, boss. He Chao got up and bowed to Tan Xiao with a serious expression. At 3 a.m., Mo On's group of 5 escorted Qian Xingwang's group of 7 back to Star City. When Tan Xiao saw Qian Xingwang, the latter was still unconscious. Wake him up. Tan Xiao glanced at Kong Xia, who had fallen asleep on the sofa. He directly picked her up and walked to the next room. After such a long time of tossing and turning, it was not easy for Kong Xia to follow him. When he returned to the living room, he looked at Qian Xingwang, who had been woken up, and lightly said, Nice to meet you. Qian Xingwang looked deeply at Tan Xiao and sneered. The big boss behind the Magnificent Tang Corporation. Tan Xiao, you're really not an ordinary person. Since you know me, you should also know my means, said Tan Xiao apathetically. You're just a businessman who deals in electronic products, so I don't think you have the guts to have any thoughts on my Magnificent Tang Corporation. Speak. You're a Chinese compatriot. Who the hell ordered you to do this? Don't waste your time. Qian Xingwang shook his head and said, I can't tell you even if you want to kill me. I don't dare to tell you either. Chen Cheng also said something like that before. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and said, But he couldn't bear the torture that was worse than death. That's why he told me everything he knew, even deceiving you. In fact, death is not terrible. What's terrible is the feeling of being unable to live and unable to die under the inhuman torture. I told Chen Cheng that I'm a divine doctor. I can bring you back to life when you're about to be tortured to death. Even if you're a celestial being, you won't be able to bear the feeling of being tortured day after day, year after year. Sorry. I was too sleepy yesterday and accidentally slept in today. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.